every Friday from the Boston Public Library.
Are we streaming, Margaret?
We are
I
also
can't
streaming.
remember.
That is correct. We are
Where
also
would that
streaming.
be?
We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Well, thank you for saying this.
You're
nice
welcome.
to see you, too.
Nice to see you, too.
We talk a lot on the show about climate change, specifically how defeating it is to see this country make such little progress towards scaling back greenhouse emissions. Yesterday, as I'm assuming you know, it was just on the national news, actually, Senator Cole, Joe Manchin, killed yet another legislative push to action. One solution, not the whole ball of wax, is to change habits in our own lives. Ditch that traditional gas-powered vehicle for an electric one. Help the environment, help your wallet, if only it were that simple. There's a new piece today in the Boston Globe highlighting that demand for electric vehicles is not the problem, supply is. The writer who did the piece, Sabrina Shankman, writes that people in Massachusetts are hunting and applying for electric vehicles the way you do if you're buying a house. Quote, buyers are maxing out wait lists for models not yet on the market or ordering vehicles that won't even be built for 5 or 6 months. Count me in on that list, by the way. I'll tell you in a minute. We thought we'd start by opening the lines at 877-301-8970. Remember, that's for texting and calling. And ask if you're having trouble getting your hands on an EV. And if you drive one of the 99.58, I think, percent of registered cars in Massachusetts that are gas-powered, which is pathetic. Are you grappling with a sense of guilt every time you fill up your tank? And if not, why not? Again, it's 877-301-8970. Now, let me start by saying,
Yes.
before you attack me,
I'm not going to attack you.
for about 10 years, we had the exact same car, different colors. The only difference between our two hybrids was Marjorie had no bumpers because she'd run into seven.
That is not true.
Did you have a rear bumper, yes or no?
That was my van.
Did you have a rear bumper?
I did not have a rear bumper in the van.
Okay, fine, okay.
But I had one on the Highlander.
Did you have a rear window on that?
Well, not for the entire time.
Not for the entire, okay, fine. In any case, we had a hybrid. And the reason I'm saying that is I cannot tell a lie. I have driven a gas-powered vehicle
Yes, you have.
for the last 3 years, and I am embarrassed. I am guilt-ridden.
You should see it.
I am.
It's bright red.
It is bright red. It's a nice
Jim
car.
cuts a swashbuckling
Well, it's the first
figure.
really nice car I ever had. But there's no excuse for it. I'm guilt-ridden. My kids are ready to shoot me, and I am ready to shoot myself over this thing. I am on 3 waiting lists at 3 different car dealerships with virtually no hope of getting an electric vehicle in the next 6 months, during which time my lease is going to be up on my other car. Anywhere. It is a real conundrum, whether it's supply chain kinds of things,
computer,
increased demands, whatever it is a real problem, and we want to know if you're in that boat. Now, here's the other problem, by the way.
What's the other problem?
Before people start screaming at me for being a hypocrite. I'm not a hypocrite. I admit I made a mistake, and I'm trying to cure it. Is one of the few electric vehicles where they're manufacturing a lot is Tesla.
Yes.
And I say to myself, as I was walking to the Tesla place on Boylston Street down the street the other night, one, do I want to give any money to Elon Musk in light of his, he's voting for DeSantis, whatever. And then the confirming issue for me, when I read yesterday that not only does Elon Musk, did he have twins with his assistant at the same week that he had a daughter with his wife?
Might have been within a day or two.
That I could deal with, but when I heard that his father, who is 76, has a 5-year-old daughter with his stepdaughter, I said to myself,
oh my God,
that is an EV too far. So I'm ruling Tesla off my list, which limits I'm serious, which limits my options. And we want to know if you're in the same boat that I am, either an EV desiring kind of person who can't find one, and if you want to share any secrets with us, you should, or if you just don't give a damn and are driving a gas-powered vehicle. By the way, it's not 99%. I think roughly 5% of the cars on the road in Massachusetts are EVs. That's a significant increase, but it's still only 5%. And Marjorie still has a hybrid.
I do have a hybrid, yes, and I'm very grateful I have a hybrid because it makes a huge difference on gas. And even when I had a big car that was a hybrid, the Toyota Highlander, it's a big car,
that's what we both had,
7 people. That was also hugely better on gas than the regular Toyota Highlander. So you can get these big cars, and they are really good on gas. Not as good as a little Prius, which is really good, or the EV, which of course is better. But you know what was really neat in this article in the Globe today?
What's that?
By Sabrina Shankman, that there has been a seismic shift in the automobile market, and the industry is talking about going mostly or all electric within a decade.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal. pretty big deal. I always wonder when these people drive up, and there's a lot of these big, huge, enormous pickup trucks, these Ford 150s, and Toyota has a big...
Well, there's now an electric model.
There's an electric model,
sold out
too.
like in a nanosecond.
But cars like that, if you drive those around, you must be getting absolutely horrible gas mileage. And people always call and say, well, I need a big car for my kids, but you can get a big car that's a hybrid if you are still waiting to get an EV.
That's an excellent point. 877-301-8970. As I said, that's as of a month ago, our texting and calling line. We're talking about EV-dom and whether you're buying in. Can you find one? Do you have one, by the way? And if you're not, if you're okay on the gas front, we want to have a discussion with you.
You know what the other thing is?
No.
A friend of mine has a Tesla. You've driven in a Tesla, right?
No, I've seen them, of course.
It's like a rocket ship. You go from 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds. It's got this huge panel on the front. I mean, they're really snazzy-looking cars. But everybody else is starting to make them, too.
Well, let me ask you, but just on that, before we get to the calls for a second, am I overreacting to being troubled that Elon Musk's father had a daughter? This is true, by the way. Acknowledge having a daughter who's 5 with his stepdaughter.
That is very weird.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to give any money to the family.
Well, Elon Musk is probably an unusual guy.
He's an odd
overall,
guy.
Wouldn't you say?
He's an odd guy. Let's go to William in Gloucester. You're first on Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Hey there, William. What's up?
Well, first of all, I'm glad I bought a Nissan electric car after hearing about Elon.
Father.
I bought... Todd, that's an amazing story. But I bought a Nissan Leaf, which is least expensive electric car. And the reviews on it were not good because it only got to 60 miles an hour. It took 7 seconds to get to 60 miles an hour.
That's fine with me.
But that's a fatal flaw. The thing about most of these new... No, not at all. It's a fantastic car.
Go ahead.
The thing about driving the new electric cars that are being built, like Ford, they're building, the first electric cars Ford are building are the F-150 and some variation on the Hummer.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I thought electric cars were supposed to be for the environment. But anyway,
but let me just tell you, but William, I understand your point, but the fact that F1, now this is stereotyping, I will admit, but I fell for it too. The fact that the F-150 electric model, when announced, sold out, I think in 25 or 48 hours, is a real good sign for how a broad swath of the American people know that climate is a real serious issue. William, thank you for your call, and good for you. By the way, Nissan Leaf is mentioned in this story in the Globe. They can't be gotten either. And by the way, I want you to know, I'm not exaggerating. I am on wait lists at 3 different kinds of cars with no hope of getting one in the next 6 months.
They got a great little anecdote about that in here. There's a woman named Jane Wynn. She had a 2003 Toyota Camry. It died this winter, and she moved on to this wait list for a Hyundai Kona, the least expensive EV on the market. She couldn't find one anywhere, she said. She was on all these lists. But the dealership, an hour away, called her and said they had one, and she raced down there immediately, and that was it. So eventually, Jim, you're going to get your electric car.
Eventually, but it's a problem.
Just to wait a while. Ken in Jamaica Plain, thanks for calling.
Hey, Ken, what's up?
Hi.
Hi.
Long-time electric car owner.
And,
really?
Actually, long-time listener and first-time caller.
Well, thank you.
Back in 2012, I bought a Chevy Volt, and then this spring, my daughter was using our car so much, recently had to get another one, so we got a Tesla, and it took 4 or 5 months, I say, on the wait list, but totally worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Now, tell me, Ken, if you're going to drive a long way, that's the big rap you always hear. If I'm going to drive to New York City, what am I going to do about charging up the car? What do you do?
Well, I haven't taken real long trips yet, but the range I have the extended range one, or the long range it's called, and that's 345 or 350 miles, I believe. So, I mean, from everybody I've talked to who has them, you just plug in where you're going, and the car will automatically route you. Now, I also want to say I have a Ford F-350 Super Duty dually truck, too, but I just don't drive it.
Whatever that is. Hey,
it's a gas.
Oh, it is. Okay. Now, Ken, can we get back to the Tesla? It's for your daughter, right?
No, it's for me. I gave
for
her
you.
the old
Oh,
Volt.
you gave her. Okay.
Are you kidding?
Now, Ken, what we
He's
want to
not
talk
that
to you
generous.
about, are you concerned that Elon Musk has apparently had children with his whole staff? Does that bother you at all? Or?
I swallow hard every time I get in the car knowing Elon Musk is part of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, enjoy the Tesla, and actually, if I could get one, I would buy one. And Ken, thanks for the call. By the way, the smaller Tesla, well, there are Teslas that cost 150 grand. The small Tesla, I can't think of the number, 3, I think it is, Model 3.
I don't know.
Is not, I mean, the average car in America, you know what the average car in America costs now? I just heard yesterday, $48,000.
Really?
Which, maybe that's the mean,
That's a
I'm not
lot.
sure. Whatever it is, $48,000. The small Tesla is not much more expensive than $48,000. It's $5,000 or $6,000 more than that. So it's not, prohibitively expensive. 877-301-8970. So
You know who has a electric car?
No.
One of our staff.
Oh, I know he does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does.
With a very fancy license plate as well.
You know what? He allowed me to sit in it the other day because one of the issues for me, which is not everybody's problem, so while you're bringing it up, Jim, is I don't fit into most cars, as you know.
Well, that would be true.
I meant in terms of length, not breadth. And I don't fit in his car either.
Really?
By the way, yeah, I don't fit in that car. Amy and Roslindale, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about EVs and the inability to find one. Hi.
Hi. My name is Amy. I'm from Roslindale.
That's why I said welcome, Amy from Roslindale, by the way, but thank you. Go ahead.
Right. I have a Chevy Bolt that I've had for 3 years. And I just got back last week from a long trip to Quebec City. And mostly I charge my car at home, which works great, and I absolutely love this car. But I have to say that on a long trip, it was really dicey trying to find charging stations through upper New England in Vermont. And the problem is that you get to a charging station. The first one we were at in West Lebanon, there were like 12 people there. There were 8 charging stations. None of them worked. Half the people were on the phone trying to get customer service. We went to the one across the river. There was a long line. It was just sort of inconvenience nightmare. You never go to a gas station and say, gee, we're here at this gas station. I sure hope the gas station has gas, and I sure hope the electricity is on so that the pumps work.
Amy, what I'm not sure about, and one of our colleagues will check on this, either in the legislation that passed or in Build Back Better, and obviously that's a huge difference because one's law and one is not. There were, 500,000 charging stations that Joe Biden was proposing. And one of our colleagues, that won't help you today, but one of our colleagues will let us know whether or not that became law. And obviously it will rapidly increase the number of charging stations.
Well, I thought that was true. When I bought the car 3 years ago, I went on a trip.
Wow, that is
incredible.
incredible.
It was the same kind of story. And I thought that it would increase really fast, and it has not. And as I said, for running around town, it is fabulous. I charge at home.
We got it.
And there are a lot of level 2 charging stations in the area. But the long trip needs work. Maybe if you have a Tesla, it's different. I understand that it is, but...
Amy, thank you for your call. Sorry for your travails. That's really disappointing to hear because, as Marjorie said a minute ago, that's one of the major concerns for people who are contemplating buying an EV, assuming they could actually find one. We should take a break, Marjorie.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very skeptical of Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, don't you think there's some reasons to be in the skeptical category?
Yeah, I think so. We have one texter who says, not buying a Tesla is the hill I will die on. Musk's very vocal opinions and crazy actions I just can't get behind. Although her husband drives a Tesla, and it drives him crazy that she won't get one too. Hyundai, long waiting list, but should be coming next week. She's going to get a Hyundai.
By the way, that's what I currently have. I have the high-end Hyundai, and the EV was announced a year and a half ago, and it's still not in the dealership. So there you have it.
Okay, we're talking about how you feel about driving around with your gas guzzlers. This might be the last gas guzzler you ever buy. What do you think about electric cars? Have you bought one? Do you like one? Do you have a hybrid? And do you feel superior to all your neighbors that are running around with these gas guzzlers? Stay with us. You're listening to
Next time on The World, Joe Biden heads to Saudi Arabia. That plus this story about a song from Pakistan that's taken India by storm. It's about unrequited love and became the summer hit on both sides of the Indian-Pakistani border. That and the rest of the news on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, providing resources and tools to help you navigate the college planning process, including customized plans of savings, loans, and guidance. More information at mefa.org. And the Boston Public Market in downtown Boston, offering fresh, regionally sourced food, prepared meals, and specialty items from 30 local farmers and artisans. This message funded by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A lot of great things coming up today, including the wildly talented singer, songwriter, whatever. Katie Curtis is terrific. She's going to play for us this afternoon. If you're not here now, I would come by for a great way to launch into your afternoon. We're talking about EVs. There's a piece in the Globe today that really rang a bell with me because I've been trying to buy one for months now. And you can't find them anywhere. And we want to know if you're in that eternal search, if you have one already. We haven't had anybody make calls so far who is admitting they own a gas guzzler and they're staying gas guzzling forevermore. I don't think so.
Not yet, but I haven't been able to read all the emails. But we do have a couple that I can read. You mentioned, Jim, that one of your problems, of course, with buying a Tesla was Elon Musk's, not only Elon Musk, but Elon Musk's father, who has a 5-year-old with his stepdaughter.
Yes, he does.
Well, one of the texters wants you to know that he heard that Thomas Edison had triplets with his first cousin, and he wants to know if you are now going to boycott light bulbs.
I do not have any light bulbs in my house because of that. I knew about that. I knew exactly what Edison had done, and we used candles in my house.
I'm shocked and appalled.
What else do you want to know?
Okay, this is a good one. We rented a Tesla in LA with 3 kids to drive up to Lake Arrowhead. There were so few charging stations, we had to white knuckle it the whole way. We ended up running out of juice at the top of a mountain. The Tesla sat there for 2 days, useless, until we could tow it to a charging station. Also, my 7-year-old threw up 3 times because riding backwards in the jump seat made him sick. Terrible experience. The next time we went to visit, we rented a Suburban, and it was luxurious.
Great. A Suburban gets a good 3 miles a gallon, too. By the way, the good news for the caller, was it Amy from Rosendale? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Here's from transportation.gov. President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law includes a total of $7.5 billion. This is law. To build out that nationwide network of 500,000 electric vehicle chargers. And listen to this. This is in the Times last week. Electric vehicle charging stations built with those federal dollars should be positioned along interstates. This is great. Every 50 miles, be able to recharge cars quickly. We haven't talked about the fact that different charging things do it slowly, faster, and be located no more than a mile from a major highway. That's according to new rules proposed by the Biden administration yesterday.
Now, Stephen from South Yarmouth thinks that Teslas and maybe some other cars need to come out with convertibles so Jim would fit in them.
With my head out. Do you remember, by the way, many years ago, one of the things Marjorie found really amusing, I almost died in my Volvo station wagon. Marjorie, see, she's laughing as we speak, because there was some chemical that was coming through the vent.
Right.
And before I went to the emergency room, and they told me if I had driven one more day, not in an ambulance, I drove in, but they said if I had driven the car one more day, I'd be dead. Marjorie finds that funny. When I was driving this car, because the chemicals were deadly, I had to drive with my head out the window in the dead of winter.
It was an American tragedy.
Marjorie, again, finds that amazingly amusing. I was a day away from expiration. That was my expiration date on that Volvo. Let's go to Jim in Rockport. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Thanks for the call. Hi, Jim.
I would never buy an electric vehicle.
Whoa, we're looking for you. Why is that?
Well, you've mentioned... It's been mentioned of all the negative points. You're going to run out of juice. Who the hell buys a first model vehicle? You got too many bugs to work out.
Well, a lot of them are not first. Well, no, it's not a good point. A lot of them are not first model vehicles anymore. The Volt's been around like a decade. The Tesla's been around for years.
You can't go very far in that. But I have another idea. I think they should slowly ease into this by restricting vehicles to only have even 3 or maximum 4 cylinders. Okay, I turned in my big 8-cylinder truck for a 4-cylinder little Toyota truck, and it's great.
Well, that's a step in the right direction. What are you saying? We should have laws that limit those kinds of cars which can be manufactured? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We should slowly. Look at Europe. Go to Europe. Go to Rome. Anywhere. Germany. They have.
Well, they're tiny little cars.
Exactly.
It's like clown cars, though, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's what we should be doing here.
Got it, Jim. Thank you. So it's a transitional plan from Jim from Rockport. Thank you.
You know, lots of people are emailing about the difficulty trying to charge these electric vehicles if you live in an apartment or if you don't have an ability to do it in your house. I mean, that's a problem, too. What do you do?
Well, you know, you can plug them in, even to some of them, even to a regular outlet, but it takes literally like 20 hours or something in a regular outlet to fully charge the battery, something like that.
So what do you run a cord from your house to the car on the street?
You do.
I mean, a lot of people park on the street, right?
They do.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting. Could someone call us and answer that question? If you live in an apartment building and you live on the 12th floor, what exactly do you do?
Well, exactly. I mean, Jason from Providence, and he's one of many people that said the same thing. I'd love to buy an electric car, but I live in an apartment, would have to use commercial charging stations, which would cost almost as much as putting gas in a typical car. That's a very good point. How much does it cost?
I don't know. But whatever it costs.
We should have found that out.
Even if no, you should have found it out, Marjorie. If in addition to whatever the cost, what's that guy's name who's complaining about?
Jason from Providence.
Jason, even if the costs were comparable, I don't think it is, but if it is comparable, that doesn't speak to the environmental impact. The reason you're buying an EV is not just to save money, but also because the climate's gone to hell thanks to Joe Manchin. And by the way, we're going to talk about Joe Manchin a little bit later. The selfishness of this man is so epic. It is unbelievable. We went from what would have been the single most important piece of climate legislation, $500 billion worth in the original Build Back Better, killed because of him, to a scaled down version, which he agreed to about a month ago, allegedly.
That's what he always
with Chuck
does.
Schumer.
He's like Mr.
And then
Bait and Switch.
A month later, he says no.
He's just a creep.
Single-handedly, one senator stopping us from major progress on climate change.
Not only has he made millions of dollars on the coal industry, which maybe 40 years ago would have been okay, but certainly not now. His daughter, whom he defended, remember what she did?
I know exactly what she did.
EpiPens, which people need because it's
600% increase in cost.
So
EpiPens.
how many kids do you know that need EpiPens because they have peanut allergies, and if they don't get the EpiPen, their throat will close if accidentally they come in contact with a peanut or accidentally, eat a peanut or even half a peanut. I mean, both of them. I mean, it's horrible.
By the way, our colleagues Googled. What do you do? How do you charge an EV if you live in an apartment? And the answer was charge it at your office or run an extension cord. Running an extension cord from the 11th floor is not terribly useful.
Yeah, or even on the sidewalk. You're going to have an extension cord running across the sidewalk in front of your house. I don't know. I guess we're working on that. Maybe we'll have to have charging stations in apartments.
By the way, just Elon Musk, we're trying to give you a full profile of the richest man in the world today.
How can you have a charging station in an apartment, Marjorie? That was a ridiculous thing to say.
This person texts and says, regarding Elon Musk, besides his fathering children with everybody in the office, I read that he is planning to vote for DeSantis, enough reason for me not to purchase a Tesla. He has said, I have no idea if it's true or not, that he has never voted for anyone other than a Democrat. He will not vote for a Democrat this time, but that he is strongly leaning towards Marjorie's favorite politician, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, well, lots of people are pointing out that if you were examining the morals of people who run corporate America, you wouldn't be able to buy anything, Jim.
There are a decent number of moral people. I mean, there's some immoral people, too.
There are.
Do you know what I mean?
That is very true.
Same
I'm just relaying the
radio,
emails,
by the way.
The emailers and texters' advice to you.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Bob from Springfield, what do you think?
Hey, Bob.
Hi, good morning. I have a Ford Mach-E, which I ordered in early March and was delivered in late May.
Yeah.
Made in Mexico. Nevertheless, I really love it. It's a terrific car. But a word of caution about charging areas and charging stations.
What's that?
There are 3 levels. Level 1, so-called good old-fashioned house current.
Right.
It would take 2 to 3 days to charge my car if I just plugged it into ordinary house current.
That's
Forget
a problem.
The level 2s are the most common now. Charge point, I guess, is just about everywhere. I know that there are 138 in the Springfield area. They will take 7 to 8 hours. What we need are level 3. That's level 2, incidentally. Level 3s will charge my car in about 15 minutes.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yes. And I
much?
understand that there's even a level 4 coming out. The problem with level 3s is that they're very expensive.
How much?
They cost $90,000 to $100,000 to install.
That's a problem.
But once you hook up to them, it's quick, and I think that's the right direction for us.
Now,
one word of frustration.
What's that?
I travel the Pike regularly.
Yeah.
They are putting in charging stations, not just Tesla, but the other kind as well, in many of the service areas of the Mass Turnpike.
Yeah.
I know of 2 areas where they have them, and they don't work.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And that's a frustration generally. The companies that put these in are not able to service them properly or regularly, I guess. And so you roll up to one, you plug in, and it doesn't
Hey, Bob,
work.
we're going to have Charlie Baker's with us next Thursday. We're going to ask him about the charging thing. One last thing,
yeah,
Bob.
I have a
since
question, too.
Well, quickly. Yeah,
Bob,
we're running
how
low on
much
time.
does the level 3 charger cost to fill up, in other words, at?
It doesn't cost any more than level 2s.
But if you go to a
But the
level...
initial investment...
Right, but if you go to a level 3 in the Mass Pike and it does work, what does it cost you to charge up?
Probably something around $9 to $10.
Okay, that's
now,
pretty
Bob,
good.
before you go,
comment.
One more comment from me. You know a lot about this charging thing. Do you know of any extension cords that can reach from the 12th floor down to the...
No.
Oh, thank you for
but
that.
I live, I have a condo in Boston, and we have a garage, and they have charging stations in the garage. One comment about Tesla.
We're almost out of time.
I deliberately did not buy a Tesla because Elon Musk, among other things, has moved to Texas to avoid personal income taxes.
I didn't know that.
And
we got to go.
He seems to think he's special, doesn't have to pay taxes.
I think we know that. Yeah, that is a fine point, Bob. Thank you for the call. By the way, a texter, my name is Anna. I'm the EV Program Director at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, a local nonprofit. We have helped nearly 1,000 Mass residents get EVs. All of them love their vehicles. We have waiting lists going for several models, so check out her organization. By the way, we were intending to have the president of the American Federation of Teachers in the next few minutes, Randy Weingarten. She sent her apologies. Jill Biden is speaking at her convention this morning. Supposed to be early. It's been delayed by a couple of hours, so Ms. Weingarten cannot join us. What we decided to do, since we're talking about climate, is rebroadcast for you a discussion we had recently with the guy who started it all with his book, The End of Nature, in 1988, Bill McKibben. Bill McKibben joins us and will return to you live at noon with Callie Crossley. Stay tuned.
Have you seen this?
The story of Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman.
It's on the GBH News YouTube channel.
The first African-American woman to win a freedom suit.
This is in the 1700s.
It was 1781.
When we talk about her being one of the first women in Massachusetts to own property, that is significant.
History has always been transformed through the actions of Black women.
Why is it we don't know this story?
YouTube.com/GBH News.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Riverwoods Group, the Seniority Authority podcast, is committed to helping people get smarter about growing older, with interviews where physicians, researchers, scientists, and thought leaders answer questions on aging. SeniorityAuthority.org. And Weco Hospitality. Weco cooks and delivers chef-prepared dinners every day. No subscription necessary. You can visit wecohospitality.com to see their weekly menus.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. Andrea Cabral is sitting in for Marjorie. And by the way, we are back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We hope you'll join us. A new report from researchers at Columbia and Yale finds Trump-era climate policies have, not surprisingly, put a serious damper on our country's ability to hit 2050 emissions goals. Here now to discuss the ongoing fight for our planet's future is environmentalist Bill McKibben. Bill's an author, educator, founder of 350.org, ThirdAct.org. He has a newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, and his latest book, just out yesterday, The Flag, the Cross, and the Station Wagon, A Graying America Looks Back at His Suburban Boyhood and Wonders What the Hell Happened. Marjorie and I will discuss that with Bill next month once we can't get a chance to read it. We urge you to order it, and in the interim, you can read a terrific excerpt in The New Yorker. It's called The Second and Third Battle of Lexington. Bill, congratulations, and it's good to see you.
Well, good to be with you as always, and good to meet you, Andrea.
Very good to meet you, Bill. It's a pleasure. So let's start with, there's the bad news and then there's the bad news. So let's start with the bad news. Every couple of years, there's research that's published by folks at Yale and Columbia called the Environmental Performance Index. And so they just published again and has some interesting information about where the U.S. ranking is with regard to environmental performance. Now, their director, Daniel Etsy, says that he expects this report to be a game changer, given all that you know and what a huge issue this is for you and how much you publish on it. Do you actually think this will be a game changer? Tell us what the report says, and then tell us what you think the impact is going to be.
Well, the report says that because we wasted 4 years under Trump doing nothing about climate change, we're far deeper in the hole than we were before. And I don't expect it to be a game changer. It obviously should, but it doesn't feel to me right now like we're capable of making change at anything like the pace that the science requires. It feels to me across a huge variety of issues, but with climate change clearly among them, that we're just stuck. And our political system and our economic system are not really reacting in the ways that a normal system would react to bad news, whether it's about the ongoing climate emergency or the gun crisis or any number of other things. We just seem stuck in the mire. And I try very hard not to get depressed about things, or at least not so depressed that I can't keep engaged in the fight. But I must say, this seems like a particularly difficult period of time. And I mean, the problem with climate change, unlike all the other problems that we face, is that being stuck is the worst possible place because it moves on without you. It gets worse and worse and worse. It's a time test. If we don't do anything, then those headlines in the Globe a week or so ago about what Boston can expect from a rapidly warming climate are going to come true. I mean, that's just how this works. It's physics.
But Bill McKibben, so we've discussed with you ad nauseum, and I'm sure you've thought all about the Joe Manchins representing the fossil fuel people and thwarting whatever could have been done through the Build Back Better and other things. But apart from Congress's inaction on this and virtually everything else, is Biden on the environment a year and a half in just not Trump? Or has he moved us significantly, as best he can by, I guess, executive action in the right direction?
Well, I mean, here's the problem. I think that he and his team are acting in good faith, Jim, but it's they haven't accomplished very much. And the reason, sadly, to go back to the ad nauseum, and boy, is that the right word, is Joe Manchin. They've been so desperate to get Joe Manchin's vote, 50th vote on their Build Back Better bill, which would be significant climate legislation, that they have gone miles out of their way to avoid offending him on anything else. And so we haven't seen the president acting by executive order in many of the ways he could. You'll recall that Donald Trump loved acting by executive order and did any number of things, and that hasn't been matched. And I think the reason is that they've been very scared about offending Manchin, but it hasn't gotten them a darn thing. He's been resolute in his support of the hydrocarbon industry, as you would expect, since he's taken more money from them than anybody else in Washington. So they're going to have to figure out some way around that at this point. It's gotten even more difficult as the price of gas has gone up.
You know, Bill, one last thing about executive action, or at least action that doesn't require, I don't think requires Congress, and probably wouldn't even offend Joe Manchin. You introduced an idea to us that was new to Marjorie and me, and then from what we read, you introduced it to the Biden administration. Once the war in Ukraine started, and we all learned, not you, but we all learned for the first time how much Europe was reliant on fossil fuels from Russia. You talked about and wrote about this heat pump solution, and I think your explanation was invoke the Defense Production Act, Mr. President, manufacture tens of thousands of heat pumps, ship them over to Western Europe, and I think you said, while it wouldn't fill the whole hole created by cutting off the supply of fossil fuels from Russia, it would go a long way towards mitigating the pain. It seemed remarkably hopeful, and they seemed remarkably attentive for a while. Has that totally fallen apart?
I don't know if it's totally fallen apart, but it hasn't happened yet. And, there's much as one admires much about the Biden administration, dithering seems a certain amount of its DNA too, and they don't seem to seize opportunities with the avidness one would hope for. I don't think it's dead. I think it could happen, but I think that, in their defense, they're distracted and pulled in 100 different ways. But this is a no-brainer, and it is something that you could do without offending anyone. Who's going to say, don't ship heat pumps off to Europe to help defend Ukraine? There's been more support for it in Europe, and they're doing their best to start moving on their own in the right direction. But man, we could be giving them some help.
Talking to Bill McKibben.
Well, I do agree with you on the dithering part of it, and I don't see a reason for it. As I look through this, and actually other proposals, there's no political downside to them doing this. We actually are a leading, if not the leading, manufacturer of these heat pumps. So it's good for our economy. It's good for jobs here to manufacture them. Can you think of a single argument, and you're probably the worst person to ask for this, against this? And what do you attribute the recalcitrance to? Other than everybody, we understand that they're pulled in a bunch of different directions.
I honestly don't know. It even makes political sense, because it turns out that all the heat pump factories are in precisely the swing states that you would want to be winning come November. Don't ask me. We've done our best to raise it over and over again, and things like it. They don't seem to be rising to the occasion. That is not because they're not good people who care about this stuff. I honestly think they do. But there is a sense sometimes that they're sort of carrying out the script that they came in with and not deviating from it. So John Kerry was off at Davos last week, rounding up the usual list of big corporations to make sort of vague and small promises about how they're going to do this and that and the other thing by 2030 or 2050 or something. Fine and dandy, but really, we need to be reactive. When the world gives you opportunities, we don't get very many opportunities to shake up the world. The Ukraine war is a horrible thing and a real tragedy, but the people in Ukraine, I just was on the email this morning with my friend Svetlana Romanko there, who I've been working with the last few months. She's almost going crazy, just saying, why is the West not seizing on this as the opportunity to understand what dependence on fossil fuel means? Don't you get it? That this fuel, because it's concentrated in a few places, takes the people who live on top of those places and turns them into powerful autocrats. That's the King of Saudi Arabia. That's the Koch brothers, our biggest oil and gas barons. That's Vladimir Putin. Why don't you people get this and do something about it? And it's hard to come up with a a really good response to that. We seem flat-footed at the moment. Let's hope that we can. Biden's done a good job in rallying people to the military defense of Ukraine, but let's hope that the administration can, in the weeks ahead, take and expand that and really get something done.
We're talking to Bill McKibben from thirdact.org, his brand new book out yesterday, The Flag, the Cross, and the Station Wagon. Speaking of John Kerry and big corporations, I think I would speak for Marjorie in this case too. We both look forward to, with great anticipation, whatever you're writing for the New Yorker or on your Substack or whatever, until we read it. And then occasionally this is the line: capitalism is straight up acting like a suicide machine. And could you explain, that was in italics, by the way, to make it even worse. Could you explain to us what you were talking about, Bill McKibben? Yet another massive source of planet-destroying emissions coming from a place most of us didn't think much about.
Jim, I am glad that you picked up on that piece and on that line. I think it might be the most important set of numbers that I've dealt with in a decade since the report that I wrote about that sort of launched the divestment campaign. In this case, it's about the role of bank financing for the fossil fuel industry. And a new study came out that finally quantified how much carbon cash in the American banking system throws into the atmosphere. This takes a tiny bit of explanation. When a company, say, delineates its carbon emissions so it can go to net zero, as so many of, say, the big tech companies have promised to do, it divides up those emissions into scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, which are the direct energy that it uses in its production process and the electricity that it buys to, say, run its offices and things. But scope 3 emissions is everything else, what its supply chain produces. And so companies like Google work hard to drive down the carbon in their supply chain. They go find the guy who makes the little aluminum cases for their phones and works with him to go to solar power or whatever it is. Well, there's always been a spot on the form that the international bodies put out to govern this process. There's always been a spot there in the Scope 3 worksheet for the carbon generated by the cash you have on hand in your bank. But no one ever had a way for calculating that, and so people just left it blank. 3 weeks ago, a group of NGOs produced a good methodology for calculating that. Because as companies make money, they put it in the bank, and then in essence, it leverages the loans that go to build pipelines or oil ports or whatever else. Well, the numbers are staggering. The guy who did the report said, at first I thought I'd moved the decimal point of place in the wrong direction. They seemed an order of magnitude too large. But no, if you're, say, Google, once you make this new calculation, you just saw your carbon emissions rise 111%. Microsoft and Facebook up the same or more. Apple up 70%. Netflix produces more carbon from the cash it has in the bank than it does from everybody in the whole world sitting on their couch and streaming their movies. Amazon produces more carbon from the cash it has in the bank than from all their delivery vans and warehouses they own all over the planet. That's remarkable. It's helpful in a way, because if the goal is, and it is, to get these big banks, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, to stop lending for fossil fuel expansion, it's one thing to have me yelling at them from their lobby or getting hauled away in handcuffs, as I have from the Chase Bank. It's another thing to have Tim Cook or Jeff Bezos or someone sit down with Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase, and say, look, bro, we have all these targets we're supposed to meet about net zero, and we can't do it because you keep playing footsie with Exxon. Would you cut it out? And then Chase Bank gets to make a decision between how much they like Exxon's business and how much they like Apple's business. And that at least is a hard choice.
Well, wait a second. Is Tim Cook, or as Donald Trump called him, Tim Apple? Is Tim Apple going to have that meeting and make that demand?
I don't know. We will find out. When I called around to all the big tech companies, most of them, nobody was like, "This is ridiculous" or crazy or anything. These guys all, have worked hard to drive down their emissions. Apple hired Lisa Jackson when she left as Obama's EPA secretary, and she's been there for 10 years doing a remarkable job on their emissions. So this stuff, I think, pisses them off, as it should. I will say, too, that when you do this same math for individual Americans, the numbers are pretty staggering, too. Turns out that if you have $125,000 in the bank, in the sort of mainstream American banking system, it's producing more carbon than the average American produces from everything else they do in the course of a year. All the driving, flying, heating, cooking, cooling. I mean, it's like you took, I think I said in the piece, it's like you take 3 Cadillac Escalades and park them in your driveway and just turn them on and leave them running for an entire year. And nobody really knew this was going on, but there it is,
That's what struck me. The entire idea struck me, but the idea that with everything that people are trying to do to reduce their carbon footprint, I can almost guarantee you that nobody thinks of their money in the bank as a way to further reduce that. And so where do you see the combination of, a company like Apple or a company like Google having the inclination and the willingness to hear an idea like this and act on it, and grassroots organization? Because divestiture, going as far back as I can remember, which is South Africa, divesting from South Africa, those grassroots movements really do give large companies license to do the right thing that they probably want to do anyway. How do you see those two things coming together to make this effective?
Andrea, we think alike. We're doing this grassroots campaigning as hard as we can now. And a good example, and one of the places that we're really working hard on it, is this Third Act group that we've set up to organize people over the age of 60 for progressive action. It's especially important for older people because that's where most of the money ended up. We've got 70% of the financial assets in the country compared with about 5% for millennials, which may not be fair, but it does produce a certain amount of leverage. So people are signing this pledge that they will, by year's end, cut up their credit cards from these banks and start switching accounts if they don't begin to make some real change. And we have to try and build this out as fast and as hard as we can over the next little while, because these banks are. Those 4 banks have lent $1 trillion to the fossil fuel industry, trillion with a T, since the Paris Climate Accords were signed. They didn't need Donald Trump sabotaging them. They were happy to do it themselves, and it's crazy.
So where are the banks? What banks can people put their money in that are not investing in fossil fuels?
You're probably good at your local credit union, especially in Massachusetts, or small local bank. There are some banks around the country, Amalgamated Bank on the East Coast, Beneficial State Bank on the West Coast. There's some web banks, Atmos, Aspiration Bank. There's a pretty big bank in California called First Republic that doesn't have any fossil fuel ties. But the real point is to leverage this to try and get these big banks to change their policies. That's got to be the hope. And we have to, as I say, we have to do this fast. Andrea, the thing is, we're going to win this fight eventually. 30 years from now, we're going to run the planet on sun and wind. But you read that piece by David Abel in the Globe outlining what's going to happen to Boston as the temperature rises. If we don't arrest this soon, that's what's coming no matter what we do 30 years from now. the dramas in the next 5 or 10 years, or maybe 5 years, that's when we've got the leverage to really shift. So I don't mean to sound hysterical about any of this, but that's where the urgency comes from.
Can I be more hysterical? Well, you don't want to sound hysterical. Let me be more hysterical than you don't want to sound hysterical, Bill McKibben. This is my obsession, and I apologize to the office because I've been talking to the audience. I've been talking about it almost every single day. Whether it's the Republican Party in this country, Joe Manchin on some of these things, the Supreme Court of the United States, take off every major issue: guns, Roe v. Wade, climate change, voting rights. Those entities I talked about are on the exact opposite side of the vast majority of the American people. If that's not a formula for the demise of democracy, I don't know what is.
I completely agree. I wrote a piece last week. The title was just stuck.
Yeah, I saw it.
We've got 90% of Americans want background checks before you can buy an assault rifle. 90%, even in the most broken, should be enough to get you something, 70% of Americans want action on climate change from the government. We fought the last election on climate change. It was the number one issue in the Democratic primary, and one of the 2 or 3 things that Joe Biden really ran on, but he hasn't been able to get anything through. On and on down the, we're overturning Roe v. Wade, though the great majority of Americans want it to stay in place. That dysfunction is really, really scary, I think, and one can hope that across a bunch of these issues, eventually sanity will prevail and so on. As I was saying before, the thing that's really scary about climate change is if it doesn't prevail quickly, it's not going to do us much good, because once the Arctic's melted, nobody's got a plan for how you freeze it back up again.
So, Bill McKibben, I'm always nervous when we're talking to you on Zoom and you don't have a Red Sox hat on, as you know, because you are amongst the biggest Red Sox fans on the planet. So, do the Celtics receive similar affection from you,
yes,
or is it a baseball-only kind of thing?
Well, I am a baseball-centric human being, but I think for the next 2 weeks, I think the Red Sox have 2 more weeks to get their act together while we're all watching Al Horford and Marcus Smart and everybody else. There has to be something going right in the world, and for the moment, it's the Boston Celtics. So there you are. Let us hope.
Can't wait to read the book, and we'll talk to you about it next month. Bill McKibben, it's great to see you as always. Thanks.
Take care, you guys.
It's been great to meet you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Andrea. You guys have a great day.
You too. Bill McKibben is an author, educator, and founder of 350.org and thirdact.org. He has a newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, which I suggest you subscribe to. It's great. His latest book, out yesterday, is The Flag, the Cross, and the Station Wagon. A graying American looks back on his suburban childhood and wonders what the hell happened.
Okay, that was a pre-recording because we had a scheduled guest, Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, who, because of a scheduling mess-up, could not be with
us. The First Lady of the United States.
Yeah, Jill Biden.
She had a pretty good excuse. Yeah.
She had a pretty good excuse. Jill Biden's speech was a little bit later than it was supposed to be, so unfortunately she couldn't make it. We'll hope to get her here another time. But in any case, we are going to be talking up next to GBH's Callie Crossley. She's going to join us on Jim Jordan and all this hoopla about a 10-year-old girl who was raped and her story was doubted. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7.
I'm Frank Oglesby, voice of the T. The doors are opening for smart conversation with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Local perspective, local voices. Welcome aboard Boston's local NPR.
Support for our programs comes from you and the Village Bank. These days, we all need to feel connected. The ability to connect with your money is in your hands with the Village Bank's digital banking solutions. Village-bank.com. Member FDIC, member DIF. Watch home cooks from across the nation showcase their signature dishes as they vie to win the top spot in the search for the great American recipe. Don't miss the competition tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio, finally a 3-digit suicide hotline number, 988. It starts tomorrow. But are there the resources there to make it work? Kelly Crossley joins us. Then it's official. Joe Manchin has effectively killed any effort by the Democrats to do anything on climate. We'll hear from media maven Sue O'Connell about the coal-loving senator's obstructionism and the death of Ivana Trump.
Tamar Haspel on her new book, To Boldly Grow, Finding Joy, Adventure, and Dinner in Your Own Backyard. We'll open the lines and ask you, are you willing to forage for your food?
Yes.
Any turkey shooters and pluckers out there? Then live music Fridays here at the library with fantastic folk singer, songwriter Katie Curtis. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. Saudi Arabia has announced it will allow civilian flights to cross its airspace to and from Israel. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Jerusalem on the gesture that comes as President Biden travels from Israel to Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia said it would not discriminate between aircraft carriers flying through Saudi airspace. That's a move to allow airlines to shorten their flight time while traveling from Israel to countries like India and China and back. The White House called it a historic decision following months of U.S. diplomacy with Saudi leaders. Saudi Arabia and Israel do not share official ties, but Biden is encouraging the Saudis to take steps toward eventual normalization of their relations. During the Trump administration, Saudi Arabia agreed to some overflights to and from Israel. This new step broadens that. Palestinian leaders object to Arab countries forging ties with Israel, while Israel has not made peace with the Palestinians. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Jerusalem.
A new document released by the Indiana Department of Health confirms that a doctor in Indianapolis reported an abortion to state officials that she performed last month on a 10-year-old rape victim. This comes after Indiana's Attorney General said he'd investigate the physician for allegedly failing to report abortions as required by state law. NPR's Sarah McCammon has more.
In a document obtained by NPR, Dr. Caitlin Bernard says she provided a medication abortion to a 10-year-old patient on June 30th at Indiana University Health Medical Center. The event drew public attention after Bernard related the story to the Indianapolis Star, saying the girl was forced to cross state lines because of Ohio's abortion ban. Prominent abortion rights opponents expressed skepticism until this week when a 27-year-old man was charged with her rape in Franklin County, Ohio. Indiana's Republican Attorney General told Fox News he planned to investigate the doctor. Sarah McCammon, NPR News.
The medical examiner in Summit County, Ohio, says a black motorist who was shot to death by police last month had at least 46 bullet entrance wounds on his body. Jalen Walker died after an attempted traffic stop and foot chase by 8 officers from Akron, Ohio. Dr. Lisa Kohler is the Summit County medical examiner.
15 gunshot wounds injured the torso and caused internal injury to his heart, lungs, liver, spleen, left kidney, intestines, and multiple ribs.
Police say they were fired on from Walker's car, but he was not armed when he was on foot. His killing on June 27th prompted 2 weeks of protests in the city of Akron. Surging gasoline and food prices did not slow spending last month. The Commerce Department reports U.S. retail sales were up a full 1%, led by strong online sales. The Dow was up 568 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu has endorsed Attorney General Maura Healey for governor of the Commonwealth. The endorsement comes as Healey no longer faces a Democratic primary challenger and is heavily favored to win the race for the corner office. It also comes as the two, Healey and Wu, prepare to campaign together this weekend. In her endorsement, Mayor Wu says, quote, "I'm proud to endorse Maura Healey for governor because I know that she'll be a strong partner in our mission to build a Boston and a Massachusetts that works for everyone." Unquote. On the Republican side, Healey faces former state rep Jeff Deal and Rentham business owner Chris Doughty. Public Works departments on Cape Cod are asking for patience while they deal with a shortage of seasonal workers to maintain town parks. Wellfleet was only able to fill 2 of 6 openings for seasonal work like mowing fields. Falmouth only filled 1 of 6 positions. Jeremiah Pearson with the Falmouth DPW says they have to prioritize what gets done.
We're trying to get the most important areas and the areas that we spend a lot of time and money in, like our athletic field. The infields of baseball fields might not get groomed. We're trying to catch up right now. Things just aren't getting done unless it's a priority.
And the Cape Baseball League is in full swing right now. Falmouth raised the starting rate for seasonal workers from $17 an hour to $19 an hour to entice more applicants. And after being swept out of Florida, the Red Sox are in Bronx this weekend for a series with the first-place Yankees. First game, first pitch tonight is 7:10. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople, covering a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More for entrepreneurs at progressivecommercial.com and the Lemelson Foundation.
Here's Jim Rowdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live, as we do every Tuesday and Friday, from the Boston Public Library. You can just stop in. You don't need any tickets. Stay as long or as little as you want. No, people ask me that all the time.
Is it free?
It is free. Yes, it is free. No tickets. You can just show up. And I want to add, we are streaming at the BPL at youtube.com/GBH News.
Wow.
I know. I'm up in my game, Jim.
Impressive.
Up in my game.
You really are, I'll tell you. Joining us now live, and she did show up at the BPL, is GBH's Kelly Crossley. Kelly, of course, is host of Under the Radar with Kelly Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here at 89.7 at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should applaud for Callie, too, I think. It'd be nice. But it's okay. It's later, maybe. It's also the host of Basic Black, which airs Friday at 7:30 on Channel 2. Great to see you, Kelly. How are you?
Good to see you.
So let's start with this story that has been all over the news in the last couple of days about a 10-year-old girl who was raped. And she needed to get an abortion. She was 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant, but she could not get an abortion in Ohio, where she lived, and she had to go. I think she went to
Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah. What happened with this story when it hit the news?
Well, it was reported by the Indianapolis local newspaper, and the reason that it was they had information because it came from the doctor who performed the abortion in Indiana, but when they wanted more details, she said, well, I can't give you more details because I'm under HIPAA rules, as everybody knows. So then it was assumed that, well, she just is making it up because now we're in this divisive kind of conversation about the Roe overturning by the Supreme Court. And so, you know, of course, these people are going to come up with the most outrageous case they could. And since there's no details, of course, it couldn't happen. So in Ohio, where she could not get an abortion because the ban was complete with no exceptions. That means that anybody who was raped, incest, nothing, there's no exception. Or the health of the mother at that point, because there are many conditions which people still don't seem to grasp that have nothing to do with the original thing was that the woman was trying to deliver the baby and had complications that require for her health.
Can I stop for one second?
Yes.
You know how surreal this is? You said what I would have said. Health of the woman, the mother, and we're talking about a 10-year-old rape victim.
Right.
Who may have just turned 10.
Exactly.
She just turned 10.
I'm
that
sorry.
is correct.
So it's possible that she was raped.
9.
She was raped
no,
at
she
least
was
twice.
At 9.
At 9 years old.
No, she was. It's not. As I heard. It was 9. All right. So now we have the folks who are resenting that the Indiana doctor had said something, and so here are some of the Republican folks in Ohio who decided they would come forward and say, this is obviously a made-up story. I think they got more infuriated because President Biden used the case as he was signing his executive order, trying to put some protections in place for folks who are in these challenged states and who may want to travel. So Dave Yost, the Republican Attorney General of Ohio, said there is not a whisper of evidence, and went on to say it's more likely this is a fabrication. Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, also tweeted, quoting Yost, adding, "Another lie, anyone surprised?" And South Dakota's Governor Kristi Noem said, "Now it looks like the story was fake to begin with." Conservative media went wild. Just
Tucker
said,
Carlson
Tucker
on
Carlson.
Fox.
It was never true. They made it up. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so then the guy was arrested, who actually committed this horrific, beyond the pale of horrific crime. And so you would think there would be, we made an error, whatever. No, now they're all, it's very important that we get these criminals. Of course, this isn't, we should do this, but not addressing the fact that they had gone on a tear saying that this was a case that was made up. I think the other thing to note here is that the service, the organizations and agencies that are often involved in these cases point out it is rare, yes, but it's not unusual. They've had other cases like this, which is one of the reasons that they were so devastated by the Roe overturning. And so I just come back to what I said immediately after the Roe ruling, is that there is, I believe, a fixed image in the minds of people who are anti-abortion, that they have in their mind a youngish woman. She doesn't have to do this. She's got many resources. Of course, people will want that baby. What's wrong with you? All this kind of stuff. And there's no thought that in that same group, in that same image, should be this situation, and also other women who have been raped and are victims of incest. No understanding that it's not a bodily function. That's how they seem to respond to it.
Can I return to what you said a minute ago, the Jim Jordans, the Republican Attorney General, Fox News, all these people who, to score a political point, said, as you quoted the great Jim Jordan, who probably was complicit in the sexual assault of wrestlers when he was at Ohio State, but has not been formally charged with anything yet, says another line, anyone's surprised, to score political points, don't think for a second about what additional pain this would cause for a 10-year-old, assuming it was true, which it was. Yeah. The family of the 10-year-old, assuming it was true, which it was. And even better than this, Manu Raja, who's a really tough and good reporter for CNN, he does the congressional stuff, goes up to Jim Jordan after all this and says to Jordan, "Why did you delete your tweet calling the 10-year-old the abortion story a lie? And do you feel sorry?" The first voice you hear will be Raju, and then Congressman Jordan.
Apologize to the girl and the family for suggesting it was a lie.
Never doubted the child. I was responding to a headline from your profession, the news profession, which happens all the time on Twitter. Doubted Joe Biden, which is usually a smart thing to do.
I never doubted the child, even though he said another lie, anyone surprised, and then he deleted the rest. There is such an absence of humanity in this political debate. Even if you have different positions on the issues, they don't give a damn about a human being, their feelings, their pain. It is incredible. And by the way, it might go a long way if Jim Jordan was together enough to say, "I feel bad about this. I really made a mistake. I spoke too soon." He's not going to lose one vote in Ohio, but he can't bring him to, and has to use the opportunity. While you're at it, let's attack Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden's fault because he can't trust anything. It's despicable.
But the other thing is, a lot of these states are, of course, as you pointed out, Callie, they're taking away any kind of exceptions for rape or incest. So if you were talking about this happening, you're right, it's rare, but it happens. And the National Right to Life president or CEO, whatever he is, was interviewed in one of these stories, and he thought that a 10-year-old should have to carry.
I heard that, and I was
the child.
Appalled.
And she'd be happy.
But again, I want to come back to the fact that I am appalled that so many people actually don't understand biology.
They don't.
And think that this is, it's just another bodily function. that it has no impact, physically. Let's just go to the physicality of a 10-year-old having to have a forced birth, or even, and to go through the abortion is traumatic enough. And no one considers that this has huge mental health implications. It's as though, oh, well, you do this Tuesday, and by Friday you should be okay.
Yeah.
What is this? I just don't
Well,
get
it's a disrespect
it,
for women, I think,
yeah,
at a very fundamental level. I mean, it's so many people have pointed out in all these fights about abortion, pregnancy for many people is quite an ordeal. They get high blood pressure, they get very sick, they have all sorts of issues when they're grown women, never mind when you're a little kid.
And let me just say one last...
And the numbers of black women? I can't even speak on that.
Well, disproportionate people of color and poor
right.
people. You know, one last thing about this is who knows what's going to happen in 3.5 months when people go to the polls. But as of today, inflation and the economy are up here. And if you're not watching on streaming, meaning through the roof, and abortion as a driver for voting, only 5% of the people in a poll, I think it was the New York Times the other day, said that'd be the primary motivation for their voting. So we'll see what happens. So speaking of mental health, as you did a minute ago, some potential really good news. Explain to people what is happening tomorrow, Kelly Crossley.
Nationwide hotline for mental health using the numbers 988. This is really interesting. A network of more than 108 local call centers. This kind of help has been way underfunded, as we know. I mean, even with this infusion and this attention, it's still going to be underfunded, given what we now know about the mental health concerns, the high rate of mental health concerns, and that which we haven't yet fully calculated related to COVID and some of the other issues. So this is really important. But I take note of Xavier Becerra, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, who said 988 will work if the states are committed to it. It will not work well if they're not. He says there's no reason, no excuse that a person in one state can get a good response and a person in another state will get a busy signal. Just to be clear, the kinds of hotlines that have been operational before this formalization have been actively used. So this is not something where one or two people call in. Lots of people are calling in to take advantage of it. Here's my only concern. You call, at least you can get a professional who can talk to you, particularly if you're suicidal. But what should happen, Jim, of course, is there should be some follow-up. There should be some treatment programs. There should be some beds for some people to go to. And we know that I don't know a state that is prepared on that level.
Well, you know, they're estimating, too, to further your point, Kelly Crossley, they're estimating that while there is a toll-free number to serve the same purpose, obviously it's got 10 digits, which is a whole different deal. Now that it's 3 digits and everybody's going to remember it, they're estimating the number of calls is going to double to somewhere in the 7 million range a year. And as you say, we don't have the staffing, the person power, and the resources now. And can you imagine, you finally are told there's a 3-digit number you can call. Apparently 1 out of 6 calls already are not answered. But the flip side, in terms of hope, if there is adequate funding, and there's some decent federal funding, just not enough yet, is they say the success rate, even in the initial call, forget the referral that you were talking about, which is really important, is colossally high when someone has someone who has expertise to talk to. So the potential here, again, if the money backs up the concept, is huge, and good for those people who were behind this thing. I think Seth Moulton
I was about to say
something.
our own Seth Moulton had something to do with this, so this is important.
Yeah, well, he's talked about the number of veterans who've taken,
which is a real issue,
their own lives.
Wasn't it 20? What is the number most recently? 22 a day, or
I
some
don't know.
It's very high
number.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, this 988 number is operational. We don't know how operational, but goes into effect tomorrow. It's 988.
And these are trained professionals,
Yes, they
so
are.
that's what's really important as well to say.
So we're talking with Callie Crossley from GBH here. So Joseph Kafari, who heads up the Department of Homeland Security Office's Inspector General Office, who's taken a lot of grief about what he has not done. He was appointed by former President Trump, and he didn't audit the way he was expected to, et cetera, et cetera. But he is now, has accused the United States Secret Service of erasing texts from January 5th and 6th. Of course, January 6th was the day of the insurrection. And just to give a backstory here, people may remember when Cassidy Hutchinson testified. Hutchinson testified last week. She was the chief aide to Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff. She talked about this altercation between the president and a Secret Service agent. The president wanted to go to the Capitol. The Secret Service saying no. How he lunged at the President Trump supposedly lunged at the steering wheel, and the Secret Service came out and said that wasn't true. And they were willing to come forward under oath and straighten it out. Well, it's been quite a few days later. They still have not come under oath to straighten it out.
Well, can I add to that story? While we were talking to Kelly about 988, the CNN on the screen behind you reported that an officer, I don't know who the officer is confirming that.
It was a Washington, D.C.
Oh, was it? I didn't know that Trump, in fact, did reach for the steering wheel.
Well, I think my understanding is he saw an altercation going on in the car. He couldn't, I mean, maybe there's something new now.
They said on the Chiron there, the steering wheel.
Okay, then it's advanced since I heard about this or read about it this morning. But in any case, so the Secret Service has erased the text. They're claiming it was because they were doing an upgrade to the phones of the Secret Service, but wow.
So, I found it stunning that they said it wasn't a malicious erasure. And my response is, it's still erased. Do you not understand that? I mean, what's the grasp there? My second point is, how many of us work in offices where we have to switch over to the phone system? Is not the first thing that is said by, I don't know, by your IT people, but our IT people say it about 5,000 times and then stand over you and say it again. Did you back up all your stuff? Right? Am I wrong?
Exactly.
I would assume that there'd be a higher level of IT person at the Secret Service that would say, here, I'm whispering this to you secretly, back up this. I just,
Well, I think we can add something to that, too. I think most people who are involved in the normal eraser, as they say of this, if that's the proper pronunciation, it might have occurred to them that January 6th was a fairly important day in American history, and maybe we should not erase that, or at least ask somebody. In all seriousness, we're making light of this and making
it's a big deal.
This is a huge deal.
But whether or not they recognize the day or not actually is not important, Jim. You know why? Because they are required to keep government records, period. So it could be January 10th. I don't care.
Our
Thank
national
you.
security experts
Yes.
made that point last night on CNN talking about this.
That's why, remember, there was a whole
For
big
history.
That's correct. A whole big kerfuffle when President Trump stopped writing the names of people coming into the White House, and they had to say to him, I'm sorry, this is a record.
And when he was flushing records down the toilet at Mar-a-Lago. I think most presidents
Send
do that,
the email to Jim. I did not say that.
No, it's true. It is totally true. He was flushing presidential papers
that was
down
one of the great
toilet.
stories
I'm just
of all
standing
time.
up for IT people everywhere that told them before they
I don't have a
over.
shredder. Should I just put him in the toilet? Great.
But the whole thing with the Secret Service here is getting very creepy because the gentleman that Cassidy Hutchinson was talking about had left the Secret Service to go
He's
work
a political
for Trump
operative.
in the White House, and so he was very close to Trump. And apparently lots of Secret Service, which is fine. They like the president. I guess that's fine. They like the president. I know when people used to talk about Barack Obama, the Secret Service liked him, so that's fine. But this is a little over the top, I would say. Erasing the records.
I think erasing the records is more than a little over the top. It is against the law, actually.
And the crucial thing is too is in terms of the former president's culpability, and what happened January 6th. There could be indications of. We know from testimony that he intended to go to the Capitol, wanted to go to the Capitol, was urging the Secret Service agents to take him to the Capitol, and he was aware that they were all armed. So this would have been even more evidence in that regard.
We should also give you, I'm sure people know this, but for those who don't, the next hearing of the January 6th committee, which at least in our estimation, I know I'm speaking for Marjorie, has done a spectacularly clear and focused and disciplined
they really have.
job. In the last two hearings with Hutchinson and then the other day painting Donald Trump into a corner of epic proportions. The next hearing, which might be the final hearing, it's unclear, is Thursday night in prime time, not during the day.
Oh, wow.
And they will be focusing on what Donald Trump did for the 3+ hours. This is all going on January 6th, when he was not doing what he should have been doing, which is either calling the National Guard or calling off the troops. So it should be really, really important and powerful, I should say. We're talking to Callie Crossley.
Now, are we moving on to our fun topic here?
Let's do fun, yeah.
Let's do fun. Okay. The Providence Journal had a story via Yahoo News about which ice cream flavor Rhode Island likes that the rest of the nation doesn't. Now, I spent a lot of time on Rhode Island. I lived on the border of Rhode Island, so I knew what the favorite flavor was.
Did?
Yes, absolutely. Coffee ice cream.
No, chocolate chip cookie dough.
Okay, chocolate chip cookie dough, but underneath it is all the coffees. Right?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So, chocolate chip cookie dough.
But wait a second. Don't leave that. Like chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh, that's
is the most popular ice cream flavor in Rhode Island.
Don't you love that chocolate chip cookie dough? I love chocolate chip cookie dough.
Okay.
But the coffee thing is a big thing, which lots of people don't like. Do you like coffee ice cream?
I like coffee ice cream, but Rhode Island has a particular coffee thing that is, signature to the state.
Yeah.
Which I can't think of the name
What's it,
of.
coffee milk or whatever?
Yeah, coffee milk.
That's
right. Yeah.
Coffee cabs,
right.
we used to call them. Coffee cabs.
What is that, like coffee milkshake?
It's short for coffee cabinet.
Which is
That's what we call fraps.
Which is which we call a milkshake in New York and Philadelphia. I never heard either of those terms till I got
can't
here.
hear me either. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but
it's a milkshake.
I don't like coffee ice cream myself, but lots of people do like it.
No, it's good.
Very
and
big.
Really, it's delicious when it's homemade, which, all the places here in Massachusetts do a great job in homemade. This is National Ice Cream Month, and National Ice Cream Day is Sunday.
Sunday, yes, it is.
So this is your time to lose your mind, as many of us will.
Where's your favorite local ice cream place?
Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, really? What's the name of the place in Martha's Vineyard?
Ben and Bill's, and there's another one in Edgartown called the Island Candy and Bazaar.
Okay.
It's number 2.
And we know what yours is, Four Seasons.
Four Seasons.
I like Four Seasons.
Is it Centerville?
I like Four Seasons.
Isn't it great?
Yes.
It's very rich.
It's Ben and Bill's, very delicious.
Is it? I've never been there. I haven't been to Martha's Vineyard in years. I should go.
I'll tell you a Ben and Bill's story. I was, I freeload all over the the island.
Well, the fact that you admit it is actually very
I admit it all the
healthy.
time.
Yes.
So I'm with, freeloading with some friends, and we had a great dinner, and then we got all lazy and sat around at the couch, and, some people fell asleep, but we woke up and just talking, just various ones of us, and looked at the clock and realized it was, 5 minutes before Ben and Bill's closed. And literally, these are adults. We all jumped in the car, ran over there, got there just as they were closing the door. This is obviously pre-COVID. I was sent as ambassador because I live in there, and put my little face to the window, please.
Beautiful.
And they opened up.
They did?
Yes.
Oh. Well, it is fun in the summertime to go to your favorite ice cream place and get like several quarts of different kind of ice cream and get all the whipped cream, the homemade whipped cream that they make at Four Seas, and then the hot fudge sauce, make everybody do the make.
I don't even do all that. I just like the basic, delicious, creamy. You do realize that in Massachusetts we have the ice cream innovators and the Steves and then up, Ben and Jerry's got ideas from them.
That is true.
And so much of that, what we enjoy about really premium ice cream that is all over the United States, actually started here.
So do you think it's better than Christina's in Cambridge? That's Jim's favorite.
Christina's in Cambridge and
Fabulous.
Toscanini's both got noted last year for food and wine.
I have 2 observations to make before we leave this really important topic. According to the International Dairy Foods Association, don't look. What is the number one flavor ice cream preferred in America? It is not vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry. I'm stunned by this too. Number 1 in the United States.
Okay, I'll guess. I'll guess chocolate chip.
Nope.
No, I think it's chocolate and vanilla.
Cookies and cream.
Cookies and
you
cream.
Find that odd?
No, I think it's delicious.
Okay,
I
fine.
like cookies.
I have another
and cream.
observation to make. Thank you for asking. I heard something this morning. I think it was on NPR. Because people have all this pent-up desire to do things and go places and whatever, none of which anybody can afford for obvious reasons. Ice cream has been the luxury, for lack of better expression, of choice.
Yes.
Because even though it's not cheap anymore, it's cheaper than going somewhere we can't. Having said that, how many stories have you both heard about lines? There was one in the Globe last week being an hour long, because a lot of these summer locations can't get any staff.
Oh, yeah.
And then we read the stories last year about the customers getting angry, punching people out, and all that sort of stuff, screaming at young women, girls who were working in these places.
Well,
so it's a real conundrum.
Ben and Bill's was quoted in one of the local newspapers. This was a month before full season, saying by now I should have 25 people and I have 5.
Wow.
So I don't know what the serious line situation is going to be.
You should tell the truth about this. I mean, because of that, Callie is actually staying in Ben and Bill's back room. She didn't want to disclose it, but I felt I had it.
It wouldn't be surprised. I might as well live in there.
So what are you doing this weekend there, Kelly Crossley?
We are on Under the Radar having our LGBTQ roundtable, and we're talking about, obviously, the impact of Roe on the overturning of Roe and its potential impact on the rights of gay rights of LGBTQ community and what that means, and actually already how it's having an impact. We're also looking at that homophobic graffiti at the Pride, the new senior housing
complex. Yeah, we're going
to
talk to Sue O'Connell about that in a minute. That is a shocking story to me.
It really is, and what that's going to mean, though, people are going to are responding to it as a community better, and we're having fun conversation about Fire Island, the new movie, which I am saving.
Oh, I didn't know there was.
Yes, the new
documentary, or
no, it's a rom-com set on Fire Island with Bowen Yang as one of the stars, and it's set among vacationing gay men. So it's a full-on romance rom-com that's gotten all kinds of great reviews, and I'm saving it as my fun thing to do.
Excellent. Good to see you, Kelly.
Wait, and the second part of that is we're talking to Geraldine Brooks of the fabulous book Horse. If you've not read it, it is amazing. It's a true story. Horse is the name of the book, and it's a true story that she fictionalized, which, if you've ever read her stuff, you know how brilliant that is. It is fascinating. I kept going saying, oh my God, how did I not know this? But do
you know why Marjorie's particularly interested in this? Why don't you share with?
Oh, yes, I know.
Secretariat. My staff made me a mug.
There is a connection, I believe, to Secretariat from Lexington, the horse that she named. This horse is real.
I'd be listening if I were you, Marjorie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll read it. Okay,
Yeah.
Kelly Crossley.
Good to see you, Kelly.
Very much.
Thanks so much.
Kelly Crossley is host of Under the Radar with Kelly Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here on 89.7 and 6. She also hosts Basic Black, which you can catch Fridays at 7:30 on GBH2 or the GBH YouTube channel. Next up, our media maven, Sue O'Connell, about a new lawsuit alleging that contestants, actually we're talking about something different. We're going to talk about the death of Donald Trump's first wife, Ivana, and also, big surprise, Joe Manchin doesn't want to save the planet. We talked a little bit about that with Callie and before, but we're going to talk about it again with Sue O'Connell. She's next, 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
The artist Knows So treats music like a public diary, one that wrestles with complicated questions about gender and identity.
I hope that people can listen to any of the songs and feel like they're seen, because while I was growing up, I felt like there wasn't a lot of music that spoke directly to me.
I'm Elsa Chang, Knows So's debut album, this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Picasso, real estate co-ownership that helps people buy and own a second home. Picasso brings buyers together to co-own a property in an LLC, then provides ongoing management. Listings at PACASO.com. And Hebrew Senior Life, a Harvard Medical School affiliate empowering seniors to reach their full potential with senior living, healthcare, aging research, and more. You can consider Hebrew Senior Life at allweareforyou.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Let me just give you a sense of what is coming up in a couple of minutes. Tamar Haspel just walked in. She's going to be with us about 20 minutes. She has a new book, obviously the Washington Post columnist. She has a new book, To Boldly Grow, Finding Joy, Adventure, and Dinner in Your Own Backyard. I'm not quite there yet. Maybe I will be after having spoken to Tamar. That is going to be happening in just, when is that happening? That's happening in about 20 minutes. Then Katie Curtis, the great Katie Curtis, is going to sing for us. I am really excited about that. So we have a whole bunch of things, but first we have Sue O'Connell, here to take on the social norms and abnormalities of the day. Media maven Sue O'Connell joins us. She is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News and a contributor current on NBCLX and NECN. Did you know that, Sue O'Connell?
I'm very busy. Today I did it all. That's today.
Fabulous.
I did it all. Thank you just for waking up. I get applause.
Thank you. We appreciate that, yes.
I want to mention, we just got a text from someone in Rhode Island saying it's Eclipse coffee syrup that makes all the difference in Rhode Island in terms of
coffee
all
milk.
Things coffee. Yeah, coffee milk.
Isn't that what it's called? It's called coffee milk, isn't it? Coffee? I think it is, yeah.
Okay, so we talked about Joe Manchin many times, blocking all these efforts by the Biden administration to do things on Build Back Better, et cetera. Now, the man who's made millions of dollars in the coal industry says he's not going to support any new climate spending or taxes on wealthy people. Is there any hope? Is this guy just going to run the country forever, or what?
The hope is that the Democrats have to win the midterms. I mean, I think that we need to stop thinking about Joe Manchin as a Democrat and start thinking of him as a Republican who sometimes votes with the Democrats.
Yeah.
He's the Romney. He's I guess only Romney. He's only one of those, and he's going to continue to be this way, and that's not going to change. And Sinema is, basically the same as well in that camp. So we shouldn't be surprised when someone keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and he has done that. He does also vote with the Democrats quite often. I mean, that's a factual thing as well. But when you get to these big plans, you can talk a lot about whether or not this was the priority. This is the way the Biden administration should have looked to get these things passed. But I think it's time that the Democrats just give up on Manchin and focus on the midterms and focus on picking up more seats in the Senate, holding on to Congress, which I think they can. I really do think they can, and I think that that's going to be what the conversation is. Because we keep talking about this. He's not going to change. There's nothing that's going to change.
Well, allegedly, this is the final nail in the proverbial coffin on any climate change legislation. But I want to say, and by the way, I surely am not going to defend him. He is a total...
Can you believe this? Can you believe what's going on all around us? Yosemite, they were madly trying to save those sequoias. We're having droughts. We're having temperatures higher and higher and higher, 100-degree temperatures in Great Britain. I mean, it's just...
Right, and instead of him saying... Listen, I know that things are tough for all of us. I know that gas prices are up. I know inflation is killing us. I know your rent is going up. I know all these things are happening, but we need to lead also on climate. I mean, but he doesn't say that. He just says, I'm going to focus more on inflation and, good luck to your grandchildren.
And so let me just say here, though, and I'm not only not going to defend him, I want to be really clear. His behavior is abominable. He's also an egomaniac on steroids. I mean, a month ago, he had a deal on climate change, allegedly, and then he backed out of the deal. However, two things he's allegedly agreed upon, and again, this is not to defend him, which have a chance of getting through this Congress on Biden's desk, actually matter a lot. One, remember we learned years ago, to our complete shock, that the federal government, Congress, does not allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. The largest purchaser, I believe, of drugs in America, Medicare, can't negotiate drug prices. He has agreed to legislation that would allow that to happen. That's not to praise Manchin, but just to say that'd be a huge development in terms of bringing prices of drugs down. That's number one. Number two, he's also agreed to an extension of some of the subsidies that exist in the Affordable Care Act, which, if they were to expire, I think would mean that health care costs would go up for, I think the number is 13 million low and moderate income people. So let me repeat, so I don't get angry texts and emails and then calls later. His behavior on climate change and other issues is indefensible. However, the Democrats should make the most out of these, not for political reasons, but because both of these things matter a lot on the health care front to low and moderate income Americans.
And also to underscore that and to say, not defending him either, but you're not going to get another Democrat out of West Virginia. Right, he's the best.
It's either him or nobody.
It's him or
I agree.
nobody. So
that is totally right.
I think move off Manchin. If you want things to change, you need to make sure that there are more Democrats in the Senate.
One last thing. We had this discussion just to clarify something. I haven't checked the text in the last 3 minutes. Every time we talk about someone like you says, he really is a Republican, face it. And people say, let him go to the Republicans. I know you know this, but listeners may not have thought about it. If he were to become a Republican, and he's very good friends with John Thune, who's the number 2 Republican from either South Dakota, I think, one of the Dakotas. And they've talked a lot, supposedly, about him becoming a Republican. If he were to become a Republican, even if he voted the exact same way, the Democrats would no longer control the committees. Schumer would not decide what legislation came up. There'd be Republican chairs of every committee, and for those who don't follow legislative processes, changes everything.
Yeah, that's the most
changes
important
everything.
thing. I mean, that's who calls the dance.
But I think if you are a progressive, or even if you're just a moderate Democrat, one of the things that's hurt Biden is to seem to have been bested at every turn by a senator from West Virginia.
Well, also considering that, Biden was going to be the great unifier, of the Republicans working across the aisle and being able to manage.
I don't want him to work across the aisle. I wanted him to threaten Joe Manchin with every federal dollar he could.
He's on his aisle. I mean, but the great negotiator, the person who basically, got the Affordable Care Act together was Joe Biden, and the work that he did in the Senate.
Well, I'd say Nancy Pelosi is the reason there's an Affordable Care Act.
Right. But I mean, bringing, the collaborator that he was going to be, and that hasn't been happening.
Since we're on the subject, can we bring up for the 10,000th time something we've talked about in the past? This falls into Marjorie's lane about being upset with Joe Biden because he didn't use the power of the presidency. What would have been wrong with Joe Biden calling in Manchin and Sinema from Arizona, and pulling an LBJ and saying every single discretionary, meaning non-legally mandated dollar that goes to West Virginia and Arizona, not one additional nickel will go to your state unless you support this Build Back Better legislation.
Agree with you.
And for those who forget, by the way, Build Back Better did not just deal with this huge commitment to climate change. It dealt with child care. It dealt with extending the expansion of the child tax credit. A whole litany of things that matter a lot to working families in this country.
On every TV station in West Virginia and say, you could be getting an extension of this child care.
One of the poorest states in the country.
You could be getting a huge boost in your child care, but you can't because your senator's voting against it. I don't know why he didn't do that. And that's why there's so much.
It's not in his DNA. That's not the kind of person, because he's a creature of the Senate. That's what most people say.
Well, he's a creature of the Senate, and the Democrats refuse to act like Republicans, and that's how Roe v. Wade got overturned. I mean, that's how we are here. It's this, let's take the high road and try and do it a different way, and here we are.
Okay, before we get to Ivana Trump falling down the stairs, which is
I had nothing to do with that. It keeps sounding like you're putting me together with that.
By the way, that's exactly what she thinks. She is totally convinced it is a crime.
Listen, I have no idea. She might have had cardiac arrest. Her health has not been... Well, why don't we go to Ivana Trump as long as I've started. Ivana Trump, she's the first wife, ex-wife of Donald Trump. She has died at 73 years old, and she was quite something in her own
Absolutely.
right.
I had no idea until I read the obituary how intimately involved she was in the business.
Yeah, I actually...
And a superstar athlete in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, I lived in New York for a brief time in the 80s, and also did a lot of work in New York, back and forth between New York and Boston, and she was it. I mean, I think Maggie Hamrin on Twitter just said that she was an icon to women in New York of a certain generation. She's getting all this pushback, and I'm like, but she was. I mean, I don't know who thinks that she wasn't. She, I guess this is a bad thing. We wouldn't have Donald Trump without Ivana Trump. I mean, she ran a lot of his business. She did all the decorations, with some people, of course, the style they don't like. But, it's what she did, and she did it well, and there's no doubting the success of that. She raised the kids almost single-handedly.
Did an excellent job with the kids.
The better qualities of the kids come from her parents, who they spent summers with most of the time. So, she, and then after the divorce, she broke out on her own, and she did her home shopping network stuff up in Canada. She was in the First Wives Club, which was a hysterical
movie. That was a very funny movie.
Which she appeared in. So, and I never met her, but I do know people who worked with her, where she did a lot of charity work and appearances, and she was funny and kind and nice and easy to work with, the exact opposite of Donald Trump. So,
well, there's a great line in this New York Times piece about her. She said, which says, where her husband, the Donald, and she
She's the one that came up with that,
the Donald,
right.
Where her husband, the Donald, was brash and often uncouth, Ms. Ivana Trump came across to the city's moneyed elite as charming and sophisticated, opening doors to the rarefied social circles that the Donald could then barrel through.
And I now know that the things that I thought about Donald Trump that were good, like characteristics that I thought he had, were actually her characteristics.
Like what? What were the good qualities?
Well, I think it was Donald Jr. when he went off to college, they went shopping at like a Walmart or a Kmart to get the stuff for Donald's dormitory. And they both went together, and it was after the divorce. And I thought, Well, that's kind of funny. That's great. This very wealthy couple, that's a good sign. She made him do that. She did it because she wanted to make sure the kids understood value, and she wanted him to get good publicity, even though that they were already divorced.
Enough of that. I want to know what you think.
Wait, I have more on Ivana. You want to know if she was murdered? Is that what you're going to ask?
I mean, the New York City police are investigating whether she fell down the stairs at the townhouse at the Upper East Side, but there was no sign of any kind of foul play, and the death appeared to be accidental. There was some speculation that she may have had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Her health had not been good in recent days, although she's not very old, 73.
I know, because we're old, so we don't think 73 is old.
Exactly.
But, after a certain age, falls are very most likely the cause of challenges.
Let me just say, and I'm not
drawing
anything, they did find orange hair on the steps afterwards. And
have you seen the staircase?
Well, I imagine it's filled with gold and it's wine.
Okay.
I saw on TV, the one's on the staircase with Colin Firth. He's starring, and the question is...
Oh, the movie you're talking about.
The staircase. I thought the staircase she was on. Yes.
There was a documentary about it. Now there's a TV show about it, which I've heard mixed reviews.
We
Jared
watched
said,
everything in our family.
Okay,
we watched
fine.
all of the documentaries and the series in my house.
Can I say one more thing?
What do you think? So what happened? Did he do it or did he not do it?
I don't think he did do it.
You don't think he did do it?
Okay, fine. Now, one last thing about
Colin
this.
Firth, we don't want to see him murdering anybody,
Excuse
would
me,
you?
Marjorie.
No,
if I hear
Ruby had
one
to
more
stop
person...
watching it because she loves
Jim,
Colin Firth.
Jim can say something? Thank you. I'd like to say the following.
Okay, Jim.
If I
Jim has
read
to say
one more
something.
critic of Donald Trump say how generous he was I don't know if it was on Truth Social or wherever he put out his statement saying what a wonderful woman she was, on whatever media platform that I saw last night, it starts with statement of the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is true. Then a statement that is very generous and loving of Ivana Trump.
And
you know what's at the bottom?
And then...
Donate to make America great again. On the same damn page.
They're fundraising off of her death for the great grift. The great...
Look at Marjorie's
the great grift. Remember, this is the same guy who, took all this money from people to pay for his finding the votes, that didn't go there. I mean, I continue to maintain that Donald Trump is going to go to jail, not for anything else except for wire fraud around campaign funds and witness intimidation. Those are going to be the two reasons.
It'd be almost like Capone-esque.
It's going to be exactly what it is.
I'd take anything. I don't care what it is at this stage.
So I made a small contribution in Ivana's name. I felt it was the right thing to do. So, speaking of, not death, this is actually about life. We weren't going to talk to you about this, but I feel in light of the fact, here's the connection, only because I like this story so much. We know that Trump used to praise Musk. Yes. And then when Musk decided he wasn't going to buy Twitter and restore Donald Trump's account, by the way, I would argue that even this Twitter, if Trump declares for the presidency, I think they, as an act of responsibility, have to, unfortunately, restore his account. So, in any case, here's my segue into Elon Musk, which is not really who I want to talk about. What do you think about Musk's father? Have you read the story we talked about earlier? Do you think it's a problem when you disclose that you had a daughter with your stepdaughter who's 5 years old?
Is it the second daughter he had with her?
I don't know if it's a second. One or two is equally bad, I would say.
So. I'm not sure, but it's tough to
what do you think of
look that up.
What is your reaction, Sue, if I may?
To Elon Musk's
Is it a bad thing that the first person I thought about when I read the story was you, actually?
So, in my household, for a while, we were big Elon Musk fans.
We were?
We were. We were really looking at the science. We were thinking of, this is, 15 years ago, what a visionary he was. I was fascinated by his childhood story of how bullied he was and how hard he worked to get to where he is and how completely messed up his dad was and is,
nice
apparently, and what an impact that had on Elon and his mother. So I'm not going to hang Elon's dad on Elon because I think that he's got his own particular issues.
What is the daughter that the father had with the stepdaughter? Is that Elon's half-sister?
This is going to be one of those questions.
What is
it's like Chinatown. Remember Chinatown?
Yeah,
you told me there'd be
your sister, your daughter, your sister, your
You told me there'd be no math in this question. So if your dad has a daughter with his stepdaughter, who would be your stepsister.
Oh, I know what you are. You're an inmate. That's what you are. I believe that's the technical term for having a daughter with your stepdaughter. Oh, my God. Okay, we usually end with things like that, but we have to go back to a couple of serious things for a minute. One here and one on the other side of the world. Callie said she's talking about on her show about, I believe, the first senior Well, you tell the story. You know what I'm talking about.
The Pride.
Called Pride with a Y in it,
Pride
right?
with a Y. It's the first senior housing facility focusing and open to LGBTQ seniors. It's in Jamaica Plain. Before we get to the bad thing that happened, what Pride and other housing developments that are in process across the country do is that, when you're 65 plus right now, 65 on, you grew up in an era where you were closeted. And there's no magic wand that says that when you go into senior housing, that suddenly the people who were so homophobic to you for the past 60 years are suddenly going to be open and welcoming, right? So that just doesn't happen. There are still lots of prejudice and homophobia that's deeply baked into folks. And this allows a number of seniors to be able to live in community, in the LGBT community, within the senior housing development. And it's, there are we all know there are housing developments that focus on folks who are Jewish and, all sorts of things. And it just helps you to be with your community. And during Pride Month, Pride was PRYD, the housing development was vandalized. The signs that were out front, it's being built, it's about to be opened, with terrible graffiti that was written across the signage that was all around the building and in other places. And immediately folks went and replaced the signs. I'm actually on with Callie on Sunday night, and what we talked about around this is it's important to note that this is not new in Massachusetts. We live in this blue bubble and things like this don't happen. Bay Windows, our newspaper at the Back Bay station, has a box, and we had a period where every single week that the paper came out, someone took the papers out and put a dead pigeon in. Rainbow Times, another gay paper in Salem, you might remember a couple of years ago, some kids burnt the newspaper box. Just their newspaper, it's just your box. It's not like all the other boxes that were out there. They burnt that. There was a couple in Milton recently who were receiving homophobic mail for a long, long time. It turned out to be from someone who worked from the city who was dedicating it to them. There's, I think, an elected official or town official, forget which town it's in around here, who had a rainbow flag up, and that was torn down from their home. So this stuff happens on a low simmering level, even here in Massachusetts, on a regular basis. The good news is, as soon as this happened, folks like Mayor Wu and other city officials came out and made clear that this would not be tolerated, and this is not behavior that's going to happen.
Yeah, and good for her and good for all the community that rallied around these. We only have a minute or two left. CNN, which is aggravating me today, is spending a lot of time on the fact that President Biden didn't shake hands with the murderous crown prince of Saudi Arabia.
He's been fist-bumping every leader that he's seen for the past 3 months in order to not have to shake his hand.
But until he got to Israel. But, that to me is secondary. I just want your quick thoughts on this, because I sometimes feel I'm not grown up enough to deal with the realities of politics. The fact that he evaded the question yesterday, President Biden, when asked, did he intend to mention the dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi at the direction of the Crown Prince in the consulate in Istanbul, and he basically said no. He didn't say no explicitly, but said, I am, no one is ahead of me on human rights, but this meeting is about our common interests in the Middle East. There have been a lot of editorial commentary that he has an obligation, if he really cares about human rights, to talk about the lack of human rights for LGBTQ people in Saudi Arabia. And obviously people are contrasting what he is likely to do here with when he called Saudi Arabia a pariah after the Khashoggi killing. I get to a degree what grown-up politics and diplomacy is about. I understand why he's there, gas prices, even though he won't say that. What's your reaction to the likely fact that he is not going to mention either of these issues? It may be proven wrong. What's your reaction?
Yeah, well, obviously the murder of Khashoggi was a horrific, terrible thing, and what I think is unique about it is we know who did it, right? Like, we absolutely know who did it, and there will be no consequence for that. There will be no consequence for it because of our dependence on their oil and because of you having to be on a wait list to get an electric car because we are so far behind on this. So Biden not saying something about Khashoggi is on us as much as it's on Biden, because we are still dependent on this oil. And it is also so hard for me and I don't know how other opinion journalists are dealing with this, to be critical of a lot of what's going on, justifiably should be critical of what's going on in the Biden administration during the January 6th hearings. I mean, are we really going to expect Biden to, throw down some heavy criticism on Saudi Arabia when we had a president who was calling for a mob to go hang our vice president? This is the credibility factor that the Trump administration has done to us. This does not take away from the horrific murder of Jamal Khashoggi or the terrible things that happen in Saudi Arabia on a regular time. But we are so diminished now in this world from what happened during the Trump administration. I was with my nieces and nephews last summer. I think I said this on the air before, and we were talking about world leaders, and one of the niece's boyfriends said to me, "Well, every world leader is a war criminal." And I said, "Well, that's probably true in some ways, but we have to get our credibility back in order to be able to be critical of China and to be critical of Saudi Arabia and to be critical of, things that are happening around the world, which we don't have yet. We're not going to have it until we get conclusion on this.
Well, it's hard to be critical of a lot of other countries vis-a-vis climate change, too, because we are doing next to nothing.
Well, Bill McKibben said to me right after the EPA decision from the Supreme Court, was on TV with me last week or the week before, and he says the most miserable person in America now is John Kerry, the climate envoy for the... What does he say to the countries around the world that are not doing enough, the Chinas, the Indias, when our own Supreme Court said we can't do the basics?
And what's really sad about Manchin is that I know that coal mining has been jobs for generations of people. That is not a fun job. If you think you could get out and not have to worry about black lung disease and not having to worry about the mine cholesterol, all those kinds of things, and get the same money in a clean energy job, I mean, it just seems so horrible. It's inexplicable to me. And by the way, the head of the union for the coal miners wanted them to pass Build Back Better. Remember that?
That is
the
correct.
Head of the union.
Good to see you, Sue
anyway,
O'Connell.
I had nothing to do with Ivana Trump.
Thank you.
Okay.
Marjorie.
All right, Sue O'Connell, thank you very much.
Be well,
you have
Sue.
an
Nice to
alibi.
see you.
I have an alibi. I'm good.
You were in Rosendale or Roxbury or wherever you
the heck
are.
I live.
That's right. Sue O'Connell is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and South End News and contributor to Current on NBC, LX, and NECN. Thank you very much, Sue. Coming up, in 2008, writer Tamar Haspel began an experiment with her husband, foregoing trips to the grocery store and instead growing fruit and vegetables in their garden, trading produce with neighbors, fishing, hunting, even foraging, sometimes for roadkill. She wrote a book all about it. We're going to hear that next. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
From the GBH Newsroom,
I'm Lee Hill, the first executive editor for GBH News. The community listening sessions are really important because we are building a newsroom without walls. So we are literally going into communities, building relationships, and often getting story ideas. People are telling us this is what you need to be paying attention to in this neighborhood that nobody's ever asked about.
part of your community. GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Ocean State Job Lot, committed to partnering with customers to help provide brighter futures to children throughout the Northeast. Learn more at oceanstatejoblot.com. That's oceanstatejoblot.com. And Comcast Business, offering Security Edge, an internet security solution that helps block threats like malware, ransomware, phishing, and botnet attacks across all connected devices. Restrictions apply. ComcastBusiness.com.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're not here, Katie Curtis is going to play for us in 20 minutes. I would get here in the next 20 minutes. In the interim, you can listen to Tamar Haspel, a James Beard Award-winning columnist for the Washington Post and author of a really terrific new book. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. I love it. To Boldly Grow. I got to be honest there, Tamar. Finding joy, adventure, and dinner in your own backyard. One, it's great to meet you, and I have to be honest again and say I almost didn't make it because I was out foraging this morning, so I wasn't sure I'd make it in, but I did get here.
Foraging.
You strike me as the foraging type.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Tomorrow he forages at the hot bar at Whole Foods. That's where he does.
That's
where he does.
Truth be told, I've done that myself. I feel you.
But tell us, what is this? What is this? What are you talking about? I mean, we're talking about vegetable growing, we're talking about foraging, we're talking about shooting, we're talking about plucking turkeys.
First-hand food.
Actually,
first-hand food.
Yeah, we're talking about all of those things. And this project that you sort of outlined, where my husband and I left Manhattan in 2008, and we decided to do this thing where we would eat one food a day that we get firsthand, grow, gather, hunt, fish. And we started off, I'm a food writer. I thought this would be an interesting thing to hang, some writing on. And it was more than a lark, but not much more. And then it got this life of its own, and it turned out to be, about food, but it also, revealed the secret to successful self-improvement. And so it surprised me in all kinds of ways.
Secret to successful self-improvement, which means what?
So this involved us doing all kinds of stuff we'd never done before. We'd never designed a chicken coop. We had grown a few things at when we lived in New York. Never identified, a mushroom that doesn't kill you. I had never caught a fish, although my husband had. And so we spent the entire life of this project basically on the steep part of the learning curve, because I can work at writing for the rest of my life, and I'll never be Anthony Trollope. But you never learn as much as the increment from 0 to 1.
And so it was tomatoes what you started with? Was that the first deal?
Yeah, we did. When we lived in New York, we had
on the roof,
rooftop
right?
garden. Yep.
And why'd you pick tomatoes? Because it was easy and because it'd be a tangible, beautiful thing that...
And anybody who's ever stood in a garden and picked a tomato and eaten it warm, and it still has that new tomato smell.
And you did it. You're invested in it, to use your word.
That's exactly the word. And I ask people all the time, have you ever grown a tomato, caught a fish, shot a deer, whatever it is? And people who have, I ask them the question, okay, does that food feel different? Have you raised vegetables, Marjorie?
No, but I'm so wrapped up with my flowers and my plants.
Okay, and those are good too.
That I have an idea what it might be like to actually grow a tomato.
Because it's this combination of a delicious thing to eat and all of the personal investment into it. And every single person who raises food says, yes, that food is different.
Okay, but let's get on the list. Let's do vegetables and then chicken and then fish and then this hunting, which I totally don't get, but you'll explain it to us in a minute. The problem, as soon as I start reading your thing, I say, well, I can maybe try this. All I got to find is a perennial vegetable, so I don't have to do the damn thing every year. And then you tell me what.
Good luck with that, man.
Not exactly in those words, but what's the gist of your response to that?
So perennial vegetables, if there were delicious perennial vegetables, everybody would grow them all the time.
Yeah.
And so, we went into it thinking, oh, come on, there must be one or two. And we picked a few. And I'm sorry, they taste like grass clippings. And if you want, good vegetables, just about all the good ones, with the exception of asparagus and rhubarb and the artichokes, perennial vegetables are non-starters. So, yeah, you got to go annual.
And what would you say, if you were looking, let's use me as your sort of control here. What would you suggest to a dubious soul? Not only dubious about the thing, I'm less dubious because of your book, but dubious about my ability to actually do it and follow through. What would you say should be the entry point where I'll feel satisfaction and want to do more?
The entry point is realizing that people have done this since the dawn of people, and it really can't be that hard. And so start with something small and start with something you like to eat. So get one of those hydroponic gardens and put it in your windowsill. And that's the gateway garden.
Yeah.
Find your local mushroom club and go on a mushroom walk with them on the weekend. And get one of those mushroom kits that you add water and the mushrooms come out.
You can buy it at the guy we had on the other day from the mushroom store in Somerville. Yeah,
that's right, and teaches people how to detect the good mushrooms from the ones that are bad for you. How hard are tomatoes to grow?
Tomatoes are actually easier than a lot of things. And where we live on Cape Cod, we have really crappy soil. It's very sandy, but but we can grow a mean tomato, so it's definitely a good place to start.
We're talking to Tamar Haspel, Washington Post columnist. Her book is To Boldly Grow. Let's move to chicken. I can't remember, was it you or your husband, Kevin, who had the problem I would have if I raised chicken, feeling attached to the chicken? They become sort of like your pets.
Well, we both do, and we have laying hens, but it's okay if you get attached to them because usually you don't kill them. But when you have meat birds or ducks or turkeys or pigs, you do get attached. But I would suggest that that's a natural and even a good part of the process, because it's part of giving an animal a decent life is caring about it. And one of the problems that we have, I think, in our modern food system is that animals are raised in such a way that caring about them is not encouraged.
But you have learned to slaughter.
I have learned to kill things.
And so tell me about that. But how do you do that, especially if you have some attachment? I mean, I know you had that Phyllis Diller chicken.
No,
that was
we did.
Killed,
I didn't have to kill her, but
wasn't it killed by a fox or something? What was it killed by?
Yeah, a hawk, I believe.
A hawk. Okay. So you named the chicken Phyllis Diller. It's a great name. I love that. But how do you
go about killing an animal you like? Yeah, it's hard. And it was, of all the things that we did, it was the hardest thing that I did. But I eat meat, and my question is, how can I eat meat responsibly? And part of the way I eat meat responsibly is to make sure that the animals I eat have had a good life, and also the best death that we can give them. And I wasn't planning when we started this to go in and do this, but it occurred to me at some point that the only reason I wasn't doing it was because I'm, a sniveling weenie. I didn't have a moral objection to it. I just thought it was something that was going to be hard for me to do. But guess what? We can do hard things. And that's where the whole self-improvement, it comes back to this, because the harder the thing is to do, the more satisfaction and strength and confidence you build from it.
Do you believe that, or you try to convince yourself that that's true?
It surprised the hell out of me.
That you do believe it?
Yes.
I'm reminded of that horrible biblical story, about Abraham and Isaac and building up the fire. He's going to kill this kid on the fire, and then it gets called off at the last minute. I mean, you can do it quickly so that the animals don't know that you're doing this?
Yeah, and we can talk specifically about how to kill poultry and how to kill pigs.
Read the book. We don't need...
Because if they saw you, I mean, they probably wouldn't know what you were doing
with
the
instrument.
What you're doing. So you hope that they don't have any look at you with soulful eyes.
I take these issues extremely seriously, and although I would hope that the book would make you laugh, that part is actually pretty serious.
Okay, so not everything went as planned. Let's talk about turkey plucking for a second. Can you describe that experience to us there, Tamar Haspel, please?
Well, my husband, he's Irish, so we call him O'Guyver instead of MacGyver. And he's always building things out of other things. And he decided he wanted to build a turkey plucker out of a washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so
who wouldn't?
Exactly. And so we got an old washing machine, and we pulled the housing off it without taking the garage down, but it was close there. And we had some disagreements about the design, but ultimately we had this turkey plucker, and it seemed to work. And so on turkey slaughter day, my husband's got the turkey, and he's plucking it, and the feathers are flying, and it's like bonanza. This totally works. And then I see this little tendril of smoke coming out of the engine, and then there was a flame.
Oh no!
And I say, honey, and he's got the turkey up and he goes, what? He doesn't even look. I said, honey, the plucker's on fire. And he keeps going. He doesn't even look. He keeps going. He smells. He goes, nah, it's just a little smoke. and then it shut down. And I said, look, the turkey plucker's kaput. But the thing about it is that when we had taken the housing off, we had also taken the wiring diagram. So the only way we could turn it off and on, we actually had the washing machine console, and you had to turn it to spin to get the thing to go. And Kevin goes, no, the spin cycle's just over. We can start it up again. And that was one of our ignominious failures.
Okay, before we get to the one thing that you do that I have actually done, I would argue relatively successful, excuse me, I will describe it in a couple of so what percentage of your diet would you say is first-hand food?
I kept track.
And
the year that I kept pretty good track, it was a year where we did a whole lot of things. It was only about 30% of the calories that we ate. And which is sort of an object lesson, because I in no way reject our modern food system where other people are growing my food. This was not an attempt to distance ourselves or be self-sufficient. We did it because it was interesting, and it was a lesson in how hard it is to generate an appreciable number of calories.
Okay, so a few years ago, I know you'll find this hard to believe, but Marjorie will confirm this. Marjorie and I, as a thing for, it was our old radio station, wasn't it? Oh no, it was here, because Edgar B. Herrick III went with us. Curiosity Desk, he did. It was at GBH, where we now work. We went ice fishing in New Hampshire. Look at her face. What do you mean well? In New Hampshire, excuse me.
Ice fishing.
No, before you trash me, one of us, we went in the little Bob house. We did, what's the thing called? The awl, where you do the thing in the whatever?
Auger.
Whatever. One of us caught a fish. Who would that be, Marjorie?
Well,
Excuse me, who caught a fish?
Jim got to the Bob house after 3 people carried him out in this toboggan to get to the Bob house.
They did tow me out, that is true. They did tow me out of the ice. They pulled me, it was embarrassing.
You did catch the fish, but we did get to the Bob house, and your line got the first...
Well, first of all, I couldn't walk on the ice because I was sliding, and so they put me in a toboggan, and 3 of them pulled me out.
That's a little ignominious.
It was a little embarrassing, but not that many people were watching.
It was
but
downhill on the way out. Uphill on the way back was really brutal, let me tell you.
But you rigged up this deal where you could actually watch from you, so you didn't have to sit in the Bob house, right?
I had to be talked into this because it seemed to me that the equation on ice fishing was like trout or death. And I was not really crazy about that. And we live on a trout pond, and Kevin, who, if you may have cottoned on to the fact that he's a little more adventurous than I am. He's like, no, it's going to be totally fine. And I'm like not ready to go more than 5 feet on the ice until like a rhinoceros goes before me. And so, but the rhinoceros was not to be had. So we had to like just venture out slowly. And eventually, yes, we didn't have an auger. So we used a maul, which is like the demon spawn between an axe and a sledgehammer. And there's something really like disturbing about mauling the ice right under your feet. But that's what you have to do. And so we dug these 3 holes, and anyone who's ever ice fished knows that these gizmos, they have these gizmos called tip-ups, where you lay it across the hole, and the hook goes down, and then boom, the flag goes up. Now, part of ice fishing is like freezing to death, drinking beer around the Smoky Joe. So, but I can't say that held a lot of appeal to me. And since we live on the pond, we just went back inside with the binoculars. And then as soon as the flag went up, we're like, flag! And it's like a fire drill. You're pulling on your boots, you're running outside. And yeah, we caught some fish that way. And catching a fish, I will say, and I've caught a lot of fish since then, I mean, people always say fishing is really boring, and it can be really boring, but catching is ridiculously exciting.
It is, I agree with that.
And so, yeah, it still is.
Okay, so the fish thing I get...
Hold on, before you move on from the fish, though, I never caught anything like
Marjorie, we can fix
chicken or a deer or anything like that. But I do recall catching the fish, which Jim caught. I didn't catch it. But we cooked it right there in the little Bob house.
We didn't cook it. The fish nerds, as they're called.
And I don't really like fish very much. I know I should because it's so good for you. I just don't like it. But it tasted different. It gets back to your argument about the tomatoes and the food you've...
Part of the fabulousness was being out there, catching the fish, eating it there.
That is totally right.
Totally true. And like, we have an oyster farm, and we have people come to our oyster farm, and we will take an oyster out of the tray, and we will open it, and people will eat it on the farm. And, you know, it's not optimal conditions. They should be colder than that. But every single person says, you know, this is the best oyster I've ever had, because you are associating it with its provenance. And can I make one little point about like our food system in general? Is that one of the things that's happened as a result of our modern food system, which, as I said, I support, it's gotten us away from the source of our food. And because we're so distanced from it, those kinds of experiences where you catch the fish and you eat the fish, or you go to somebody's oyster farm, or you grow your own tomato, or you find the mushroom that doesn't kill you, are particularly compelling.
You know, you mentioned living on a trout pond. There's a lot of problems with ponds on Cape Cod right now, especially ponds with some development on them. Is your pond okay?
Our pond is doing extremely well.
That's good.
It's fairly sparsely populated, and there was an alum treatment done, which clears the phosphorus out of the water a while back, and it's holding.
We're talking to Tamar Haspel. That's the voice of your Washington Post columnist. She's written To Boldly Grow, Finding Joy, Adventure, and Dinner in Your Own Backyard. Last thing before we go, only have a couple of minutes. The hunting deer thing. I mean, almost everything on this list of yours, the things you and your husband did, I'm not sure I could do, but I could do, if you know what I mean.
You can imagine doing
I can imagine doing. And some of them I might do. The hunting thing, first of all, could you start with if I recall correctly from reading the book, you shot, at the time of the raid, you shot 6 deer, single bullet, all 6? Is that what you said? Okay, You're shaking your head. Yes, this is radio.
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Thank you very much. And
let the record show.
And what's the rationale for this that convinced you this is okay? Because I'm not there.
So I eat meat.
So do I.
And meat has a disproportionate effect on climate and environment for all kinds of reasons. And I figured that the most responsible way to eat meat was to take an overpopulated ruminant animal out of the ecosystem. And so instead of doing harm with the meat you're eating, you're actually doing good with the meat you're eating. And on the whole thing of not wanting to be a sniveling weenie, I decided I was going to try it, even though the idea of going out in the world and pointing a gun at a deer did not particularly appeal to me, and it still doesn't, but I still do it.
But you had a great story about how that helped you gain some trust from people that might think of you as, one of those...
Solves the schisms in this country.
See, and that maybe that's where this goes, is that, we talk about all of these issues that divide us, but we all have to eat, and I think that the connection between us and our food is something that, transcends all kinds of party lines. And, as a columnist in the Washington Post, I go out and I talk to a lot of farmers, and I've stood on farmers' cornfields and in the Midwest, and, farmers in the Midwest tend to skew old, white, male, Republican, church-going, and I'm so coastal, my socks are damp, and let's face it, everything about me screams New York Jew. And so you go there, and you can understand that a farmer would have some skepticism or some trepidation. And if you're standing in a cornfield, you can talk about hunting, because a lot of farmers do, or they lease out their lands. And, I have a picture of a deer I shot on my phone, and we talk about hunting. And if you can talk about hunting, you can talk about guns. And if you can talk about guns, you can talk about anything. And so it becomes a bridge builder, a way to build common ground.
Okay,
Jim said,
I'm sorry.
We're almost out of time, but I'm just wondering, how much time does this take you? I mean, you're a food writer, you got a terrific book out of this whole thing. But for the average person, you'd have to be doing this 40 hours a week.
It's totally not a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It scales to meet you where you are. Mm-hmm. And you can spend a trivial amount of time or a lot, depending on what you got.
Book is terrific, I have to say, and I am going to give at least some of this a try before we see you next time. Fair enough?
I'm delighted to hear it.
Great book,
thanks.
thanks.
What are you talking about over there?
Well, you'll see, won't you? Who caught a fish, my friend? Who caught a damn fish?
I think we had one line in there, and when the line started to
That
jiggle,
is totally untrue. And by the way, who screwed the thing into the thing? Oh, you did it, actually. Actually, you did do it. I really had forgotten, but now I remember.
Jim
you
was
did
on
it.
was on the toboggan,
Okay,
getting
children?
escorted out. And
Children?
escorted in. That's right. Okay.
In any case,
Thank you
it's great
very
to
much
meet
for
you,
being here.
Tamar. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tamar Haspel is a James Beard Award-winning columnist
Great book.
for the Washington Post. Her new book, and it is really fun and quite amusing and fascinating. To Boldly Grow, Finding Joy, Adventure, and Dinner in Your Own Backyard is available right now. Thank you.
The Artist Knows So treats music like a public diary, one that wrestles with complicated questions about gender and identity.
I hope that people can listen to any of the songs and feel like they're seen, because while I was growing up, I felt like there wasn't a lot of music that spoke directly to me.
I'm Elsa Chang, No So's debut album, this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Johnson & Wales University, using 5 decades of food and hospitality education to inform expanding academic areas like healthcare and business. You can explore more at jwu.edu. And Newport Mansions, presenting Anything You Want, a closer look at treasures from Newport's Gilded Age. On view now at Rosecliff and included with admission. Learn more at newportmansions.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Regan, Jim Browdy. We're live at the Boston Public Library, as we are every Tuesday and Friday, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The original plan was, after we talked to Tamar Haspel, to open the phone lines and talk to you about whether or not this sort of first-hand food thing was something that would appeal to you. We're going to do that, but we postponed it for 20 minutes because Marjorie and I made eye contact and we decided it was time for a little music. And We're continuing our Friday tradition of the last couple of months, almost closing out the week with live music. Today we have a real treat. A friend of ours, I should say, singer-songwriter Katie Curtis joins us. Later this month, Katie will be, it's Friday, July 22nd, along with Maya Sharp at the Ground Floor, that's in Freeport, Maine. And on Saturday, she's going to be a place I love, July 23rd, at the Natick Center for the Arts. TCAN, Katie, it is great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So tell us, this has been a tough time for people who do what you do, performing, because of COVID. How have you managed?
Yeah, well, for me specifically, I was planning to depend on my making a living as a touring musician, which I've done for almost 30 years, to get me through school and training, because I became a therapist in the last 4 years. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to play much music. But, you know, we musicians are hardy. It's kind of incredible how many musicians are still making a living doing it, whether it's through their streaming, their Patreon pages, or just going out there and playing a lot of live shows, even though it's it's not entirely safe.
And you have a Patreon page. You've done what, 14? Is it 14 albums you've done?
Yeah.
How many albums?
Yeah.
You have another one we'll talk
14.
about on its way. Is that correct? Or at least enough songs
in
to
my
do
head,
so?
yeah.
Okay, in your head. Before you play for us, and we're going to ask you to play early, and then you're going to play again because we really need some music here. What's it like after a hiatus that so many musicians suffered through, except on Zoom, to all of a sudden be in front of a live audience? You were in New Bedford the last couple of days, right?
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, the New Bedford Folk Festival was so successful as a festival. They had about 5,000 people in New Bedford for it, which, it's all these little stages and a wonderful music. For me, the day before, I was almost like having a panic attack because I thought, do I remember how to do this? Is this going to actually come back to me? And but as soon as I got on stage, I felt like, We'll
be the judge of that in a couple of seconds.
It comes back. It does come.
So it is like riding a bicycle.
It seems to be.
Okay, so what are you going to play for us first, Katie Curtis?
Well, this is a song I wrote a really long time ago to sort of poke fun at my dad, whose motto in life is never throw anything away. He's got an old chair. It's got no seat. Cracked snowshoes and warped wooden skis. Hardcover books, pages all turned brown. My dad has a reason for everything he keeps around. If you need something when times get hard, you can probably find it in my dad's yard. If you need hope, if you're coming apart, you can surely find it in my dad's heart. convenience store. If you go in the barn and open boxes on the second floor, 'cause underneath the paper, crumpled up in balls, you might find a gem or you might find nothing at all. And that's the fun of it. It's that mystery. And all these things bearing other people's history. You can look at this stuff and wonder where it's been, or you can pick it up and you can use it again. So if you need something when times get hard, you can probably find it. Surely find it in my dad's heart. Well, he can see the beauty beneath the dust and the grime. He can see potential where the rest of us are blind. He will polish the gray until it shines clear blue. And if you know my dad, he won't give up on you. If you need love, if you're coming apart, you can surely find it in my dad's heart.
Katie Curtis, Dad's Yard. That was great.
Oh my
Katie.
God, I'm getting weepy over here. So, tell me something, Katie. How'd this happen for you? Did you just had a great voice when you were a kid and listened to music and learned to play the guitar? How'd it happen?
Well, it's funny. I've been thinking because being here at the Boston Public Library, I used to work down here in my early 20s for a social service agency, and basically I cut back little by little my day job in my 20s until I was kind of discovered at the bottom line in New York City I was discovered at the bottom line in New York City by the A&R guy from EMI Records. And I was signed to a major label, EMI Guardian.
Wait a minute. What do you mean discovered? You were performing there and it came up to you?
Leading up to playing there, I was playing every little open mic around this area. I would get in my car and drive to Nashville just to be in the round with, people that I respected, like Mary Chapin Carpenter.
Oh, wow.
I would go anywhere for a gig. And then, I just happened to be playing a gig at the Bottom Line when some folks from this record label were there, and they literally came backstage in their suits.
Wow.
Like, it was old school. It was the 90s. Back, with an offer, like, we want to sign you.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And then you had your first album.
And then I have, yeah.
Oh, that's a great story.
So it's just not that, solo performing, and I know you're performing with a friend of yours. We can talk about that in a minute in Freeport. Isn't it terrifying? I mean, the notion of whether it's a comedian or a singer-songwriter like you facing an audience solo, is that you're looking at me like I'm crazy? Isn't it terrifying?
I am a kind of I have a little side of me that's awkward and shy, and in a group I may not be the person that's going to talk a lot, But in front of a lot of people, I feel very relaxed. And
why is that, do you think? You're a therapist in
I'm
training.
a therapist,
so,
yeah.
So what's the deal with that?
That is a good question for my
Maybe
therapist.
you should see a therapist, I was just going to say, and find out what's going on.
The thing that would be scariest to me is forgetting the words, forgetting where I'm going.
Right. Well, you two are also performers in your own way, and people.
In our own way? What the hell does that mean, in our own way?
Well, because
Katie Curtis is a performer
what you
in her
do
own
is
way.
much more important than perform. You
Please.
you have the gravitas of news analysts, and so
it's a scam.
You're beyond
Katie.
performing. Did I get out of that?
No, you're
okay.
doing great.
So, but I find that for what I'm doing, the point is entertainment. So if I screw up, people just love to see you, joke about it, right? Because they just want you to be okay. They don't want to have to take care of you on stage. So there's really no mistake bad enough that it couldn't be funny for the audience.
God, it's very grown up. What are you playing next?
Very good point.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to play a song. You remember, of course, March 2020, and then comes April, and we have the marathon canceled. And it strikes me that even though we didn't know how bad COVID was going to be and how long it was going to last, there was this ominous feeling as though, in some ways, we knew like that it might be this bad. And so in some ways, this is called April in Boston, and I wrote it the day of the marathon. What I was going to say, I guess, is in some ways, listening back to the song, it feels like, oh, how naive were we, but in other ways, I feel like we did know. Oops. It's April in Boston, I'm waking up early morning with the sun streaming in, and I remember like a punch in the gut, I'm waking up to the truth sinking in. And the birds sing to the empty streets, and the bells ring for the marathon. The flowers bloom for the funeral wreaths, and I pray we'll see the end of this before too long. My neighbor's walking up the steps in the evening, another day at the hospital. As we listen to the ambulance in the distance, another song no one wants to know. And the birds sing to the empty streets, and the bells ring for the marathon. The flowers bloom for the funeral wreaths, and I pray we'll see the end of this before too long. And I dreamed I was standing in a crowd full of people. It felt so good, like it used to be. Cheering for the runners, headed up Heartbreak Hill against the odds. We believe. It's April in Boston, I'm waking up early morning with the lights streaming in. And I remember, and I'll do my part. All together it's our battle to win. And the birds sing to the empty streets, and the bells ring for the marathon. The flowers bloom for the funeral wreaths, and I pray we'll see the end of this before too long. The birds sing to the empty streets, and the bells ring for the marathon. The flowers bloom for the funeral wreaths, and I pray we'll see the end of this before too long. Ooh.
Katie Curtis, April in Boston. You know, I've told you, I've been to TCAN a million times out there, Nate. It's one of the great venues ever. It's like 300 seats. You get, no matter who's playing, it's the most intimate, wonderful setting. That's the 23rd of July for you. The night before, Friday the 22nd, you're at a place I didn't know about, ground floor in Freeport, Maine. What's the deal there?
It's tiny.
Is it?
It's a cute little place. I've been there once before, and they this will be their first show back since 2020.
And Maya Sharp is a buddy of yours, yes?
Yeah, she is.
And have you written things with her?
Yeah, so we did. I was a fan of hers, and she had heard of me. And when I was in LA one time, we just decided to get together. And we weren't friends yet. We just decided to get together and write songs, because that's what songwriters sometimes do. They have almost like a blind date of songwriting.
So you play a song, and then you go to the LL Bean outlet, buy something, come back and do it. Is that what you do when you're in Freeport, or?
And yes, that's exactly.
a Freeport joke.
Freeport,
I should have explained that before I did.
Well, I haven't been to that LL Bean in a long time.
Nor have I.
You know, I grew up in southern Maine, so
I do know that.
Yeah, so I have been there, of course.
Can I say, you do songwriting workshops too for people? What's the deal with that? For
Retreats, I love that.
What does that mean?
The whole thing is to get away from the sort of devices. You go and you just you're fed. We listen to each other play songs that we're working on, and we give feedback. We sing together, and it's like this idea that you want to live in a way that makes art inevitable. I think that's Robert Henri who said that. But it's like this change of pace to try to get you into a more creative zone.
Yeah, I think that sounds so neat. That's like a writer's workshop, right?
It is. It's on an island in Maine. It's
really.
Yeah.
Oh, and they feed you dinner every night?
Yeah.
And when do you listen to each other's songs? After dinner or before dinner?
All day.
All day long.
We do it in the morning. We do some in the afternoon. So we do a little listening, and then you go off and write.
And suppose someone's awful. What do you do then?
It's a great question.
Nobody's awful.
I knew you were gonna. How do I know?
I mean, this is the therapist part of me, but like I really feel everyone has something. It's really cool.
Katie Curtis, you're gonna play one more song for us. What is it?
I'm gonna play a song I wrote about. Actually, like my first kiss that was important, which is that's why this is called the kiss that counted.
Can you relate to that, Jim? I think some of us can.
Some can, yes, some can.
Some what?
I think I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Kiss the counter.
Yeah. So.
Katie Curtis.
Yeah. Here we go. I saw it coming like summer rain, incoming ocean, oncoming train, and I veered in circles to get off your path. I tried to warn you this would be the kiss that counted, the one that mattered, my life before me undone. This would be the kiss that counted, the one that shattered my defenses, bringing me emotion. I shut my windows and my eyes. before me undone. This would be the kiss that counted, the one that shattered my defenses, bringing me emotion and devotion.
Katie Curtis, this that counted. Website is katiecurtis.com. It's great to see you,
Thank you
Katie.
so
Say
much,
hi to
Katie
Rachel.
Curtis. That
for
was
us, too.
absolutely
It's great
wonderful.
to
We've been
see
listening to Katie Curtis. You can find her music on Apple Music, Spotify, and also katiecurtis.com. And as Jim said, Katie is spelled C, not K. C-H-A-I. Whoops.
Exactly.
C-A-T-I-E. Okay, if you missed out coming to Boston Public Radio today, you'd like to catch Katie live, she'll be performing alongside Maya Sharp Friday, July 22nd at the ground floor in Freeport, Maine, and Saturday, July 23rd at the Natick Center for the Arts, which is right nearby. Katie, thank you so much for being here
Great
today.
to
That
see
was
you, Katie.
absolutely wonderful.
It was.
Okay, coming up, we're going to ask you, based on talking to Tamara Haspel a few minutes ago about a great book about going out and getting your own food, would you, like Jim, want to begin foraging for your...
In Cambridge.
In Cambridge.
In Central Square.
For your own food. That conversation is next on 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
The Puerto Rican boy band Menudo was a cultural force for generations of Spanish-speaking audiences. A new documentary series celebrates the group's impact and reveals the toll that fame took on many of the former members. That's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2 here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Ocean State Job Lot, committed to partnering with customers to help provide brighter futures to children throughout the Northeast. Learn more at oceanstatejoblot.com. That's oceanstatejoblot.com. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, providing resources and tools to help you navigate the college planning process, including customized plans of savings, loans, and guidance. More information at mefa.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan live at the BPL, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A number of people are texting. It's Katie Curtis, C-A-T-I-E, Curtis.com. We thought it'd be fun to continue the conversation we had about 20 minutes ago with Tamara Haspel about growing and hunting and foraging, sometimes scavenging for meals like our forefathers and foremothers. If you got a green thumb and have stories to share about growing your own food, first-hand food, she calls it, hunting for your own food, we'd love to hear from you. If you're not doing it but contemplating it, let us hear from you too. We all talk about sustainability, the importance of quote-unquote eating local. Are you willing to leave the Whole Foods hot bar behind, Jim, and put your money where your principles are? 877-301-8970. I should say, and that's our texting and calling line, in the abstract, this has colossal appeal to me. One is the issue you raised. It seems to be a pretty significant time commitment, don't you think? But I guess you could start on the margins. But I have to say, the story where you ridiculed me about our ice fishing experience, the excitement of the two of us. First of all, the fish was like 3 inches long.
It's like 3 inches long.
But it was.
What were they? The Fish Nerds. Remember
Fish
them?
Nerds,
They
yeah,
were
they have
great.
a great podcast.
Up in New Hampshire.
I think they still have it, actually. But the joy of eating something
Right, it tasted better.
that we caught really was exact. You felt like you were invested in the food. So I sort of totally get that. I'm not into the deer killing thing, even though she says it's a good thing.
Well, they're overpopulated. I mean, they starve. I think a lot of people go out to Blue Hills
shoot a deer,
or Blue Hills, whatever it is, every
year.
year.
I'm not having any chicken in my backyard in Cambridge either. But the vegetable growing thing, I would like it if I were eating stuff I grew.
A lot of people have herb gardens. I thought about that because I don't think that's too hard. You can grow mint and you can grow chervil, or is it chervil?
I don't know how to pronounce. I know what the word is.
Whatever it is, all those kinds of things. And having grown tomatoes. I mean, there's nothing like a fresh tomato right out of the garden. Even when your kids were little, you used to go apple picking. I haven't gone apple picking in years. When my kids were little, you go apple picking. The apple off the tree, doesn't it taste different than the apple you buy at the store?
We grow lettuce in your backyard. You know where most of the lettuce that we all eat comes from? California and Texas.
Hydroponic farming?
No, most of it is not hydroponic down the road from us. Most of it's coming from 3,000 miles away. They pick it, they stuff it in a plastic container,
right.
and they ship it 3,000 miles. So we want to know if this whole, what does she call it, first-hand food thing, if you're doing it, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're not doing it, does it have appeal to you? She's a pretty convincing ambassador for this kind of thing. You know?
I am a beginning gardener.
You've been a beginning gardener since I met you 25 years ago. No, that's totally true. You said to me when I met you, I'm a beginning gardener.
Maybe I'm an intermediate at this point.
Let's hope
I am so invested in these plants and worrying about the plants and worrying about the pests that might come after the plants.
But you don't eat them.
No, but I just watch them grow. I mean, you put them in your little containers and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And
why would you not grow something you could eat? Is that not appealing
I'm
to you?
thinking about that after she talked about the tomatoes. I mean, maybe I could do that. But you have to have the right, you know, in Boston it's kind of difficult. I'm on the top floor. I have no place to do it.
She started growing in Manhattan on her roof.
Well, yeah, I know. I don't have a roof that I could do
that
on.
You have a house.
I have a house.
And you have a porch.
Well, yes, but the soil, it's different, you know, potted plants. And maybe it's not. Maybe I could do it. But you do get so invested in them and protecting them. And I had an aphid invasion, or whatever you call those little insects.
I don't know what they are.
To go out and get all these ladybugs to come and eat the aphids. Some texters told me about that. The neem oil and the aphids.
You can order ladybugs in the mail, you know, and they ship you a whole
That's right.
barrel.
And then you put them on your plants and they eat some of the pests, and they're very good luck.
I think the starting point for us, before we get to your calls at 877-301-8970, I think it's time for you and I to go ice fishing again. I really do. I mean, it was other than, by the way, there was a true story you told to ridicule me about them pulling me out on the ice.
It was like Jim's arriving on a sedan chair.
Well, because I couldn't stand up on the ice, and they pulled me out on the ice. But having said that, I want to say it again.
It was nice, Jim. It was covered with snow.
Drilling the hole and putting the whatever down there.
Yeah.
Sitting in the Bob house, drinking beer, exactly as she said, waiting for the fish, and then they grilled the damn fish.
They have a Bob house,
I just said that.
Because it wasn't like Tamara was talking about shit that was cold, and they just drilled the hole, they sat back in the house. But they had a whole house, so you sat in the house, and wasn't there a little fire in there? I think so. Lucky we didn't go right through the ice.
I don't think so. Let's take some calls. Al on the road, we're talking about first-hand food, which is a term that Tamar Haspel uses. What's with you, Al?
Hey guys, I hunt and fish and I garden, and I think there's a lot to be learned from that.
What is it?
If you're going to eat meat, I think you should, harvest an animal yourself at least once, so you understand what goes into it. And there's a huge responsibility to it too. You're going to take something's life so that you can eat. You waste a lot less food with that. You appreciate food a lot more. My kids understand where food comes from, and I think I'm raising little conservationists too, because they understand the relationship between the environment.
So what do you shoot?
Boy, that's a great. But hold on for a second, Al. You made a great point.
What was it?
About not wasting the food. I mean, I get, because I'm not doing what you do, Al, but just buying a roasted chicken at the store. Sometimes I don't use all the roasted chicken, and I think if I had actually killed it, I might feel.
You're not killing anything, Al. What do you kill and eat?
Well, we use the term harvest.
Oh, sorry. What do you harvest and eat?
Deer, duck, goose, fish. You know what you should try if you want to make an easy entry into this thing? Is go shell fishing. Go harvest your own cohogs and clams.
Well, I have done that. That is really fun because somehow they don't feel. Yes, down the Cape when I was a kid. Yeah, you go out in the summertime with your bucket and you get a lot of clams. That's not so bad though.
Well, you don't feel like they're really alive,
blood.
even though they are alive.
Yeah, they are alive. But that is true. That is really cool. Then you make steamers, which is pretty cool.
Al, thank you. That was fair. I wouldn't have expected Al. We know him from the phones to be that kind of guy, but obviously he.
And I think you made a great point about conservation. You think much more about the environment, about protecting where you are doing the hunting.
Could you kill a deer?
No.
I mean, intellectually, everything he said and everything Tamar said about whatever it was, that they're eating.
Although I did, go down to that when I was at the Boston Herald, did the story holding the gun.
With John Rosenthal.
I felt very powerful.
Yeah, but you were a shooting range. You weren't killing anything.
Correct. I was a shooting range, but I got the power, Jim. Very powerful.
Marjorie tried shooting the fish after I got it, all 3 inches of it, and she missed, needless to say. Kaylin from Denver, Last time we saw you, you were sitting right here at the Newsfeed Cafe. Is that not correct?
It is. You are correct. Hi, both. How are you?
Remember you. How's Denver?
Glad to talk to you again.
Denver is great, and I'm glad this is a topic that I think you guys have talked about before. I grew up on a farm in Vermont, about 200 acres, and we had everything from cows, chickens, turkeys, goats. We have like a 60-bed garden, herb garden. And one of the previous caller hit the nail right on the head. When we were growing up, my moms would have rule basically that if we were to eat meat, if we're to eat vegetables, we have to be comfortable, taking the life and putting in the work to be able to benefit from it. So I would come home from college and cut beans for 6 hours and harvesting them and bale hay for the horses and pigs and cows. And it really makes you appreciate what you're eating. And honestly, I think it just tastes better. I think knowing that the food that you have in sort of crafting is, for lack of a better word, is so beneficial and so meaningful. And, during the pandemic, we didn't have to go grocery shopping for vegetables or meat for the entirety of the 2 years that we were home. We had a root cellar and meat in the freezer that we've harvested for the last couple of years, and it was incredibly rewarding and cost effective.
I harvested all my food during the pandemic from Instacart. It was a variation on a similar. I did it with trepidation, but it worked out. Kaylin, it's great to hear from you.
Great call.
Stay in touch with us. Here's Paul from Worcester. Listen to this. I just finished a grilled chicken sandwich on fresh made by me, he says, rosemary Parmesan bread with pesto using from my garden basil, arugula, and tomatoes. Food equals love.
Boy, that's a great email. Doesn't that sound delicious?
It does.
Rosemary Parmesan bread with pesto and arugula and basil and tomatoes.
Made the bread, grew the whatever those things are.
I don't think it's that hard to grow basil.
Have you ever done it?
No, but and it smells great. It smells great, and mint obviously smells great too.
I don't mind killing a vegetable either. That I can deal with. The notion. I'm serious, but I've thought a lot about this. I really can't imagine. I mean, again, I want to say it for the third time in the show. Intellectually, I totally get because I am a meat eater, so somebody's killing these animals in a far more disgusting way than I probably would, or at least Tamar Haspel does, or whatever Kaylin does. I just can't imagine pulling the trigger and seeing the animal die.
Listen to
this.
This
Can't do that.
From Benjamin in Brighton. I started foraging in Boston last year. There are tons of edible plants you can find in the city, like mulberries and sumac and rose hips. The rule of thumb is don't pick more than a third of what you find. That way you leave some for the birds and your neighbors as well.
Well, we had the mushroom guy the other day, who's a mushroom forager turned into
he lead like
the mushroom store.
Troops through different sections of
He
Boston.
He does.
And showing them which mushrooms you can eat and which mushrooms you can't.
I
had picked blueberries off trees. Have you done that? I picked raspberries off trees.
And I picked apples. You go to an apple farm and you give them $10.
My mother used to grow
and you get a bag of
raspberries
apples.
and blueberries. They grow very well down in Cape Cod. Yeah, they tasted better that way.
It's not exactly foraging in the spirit of this discussion.
No.
I think you're missing. You're like 1 degree off from where we're.
Well, I forage for. Is it foraging to go clamming? I forage for clams.
It's harvesting is the word that these people use.
I don't know what it is. I stuck my hands in the water and pulled up the clams.
I didn't know you don't eat slimy fish.
No, I didn't eat them. I just collected them.
To what point?
Because other people, we'd all take them home and other people would eat them.
Christina in a car, you're next on Boston Public Radio. By the way, inspiration for this is a great book by Tamar Haspel, the Washington Post columnist who's with us a half hour ago, To Boldly Grow. What's up, Christina?
I started fishing. First of all, I love you guys.
Thanks.
Second,
Thank you.
I actually started fishing when I was 14.
Yeah.
I'm now 74.
Yeah.
And my first fish was a bluefish.
Wow.
About 10 years ago, I stopped fishing because I found catching the fish, killing the fish, because you really have to smash a bluefish.
I know.
Like hit it over the head with like a hammer. Yeah.
Cleaning the fish, cooking the fish, and then eating it. I just couldn't do it again.
Well, I could do the eating part.
So now I just buy the fish at the fish market.
So wait a second. The problem with fishing with me, this is not intended to be a joke, it's true. How did you feel about baiting the hook, Christina?
Oh, that wasn't a problem. In fact, my very first experience with catching a fish was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take the fish off the hook. A man took it. It was one of these little baby fish.
Yeah.
The man took it, and he actually bit it off the hook.
Oh, my God.
Let me tell you, that is really encouraging. That's something that's going to make me want to go fishing, I'll tell you. Christina, Thank you for your call. We really we appreciate it.
I've been corrected by several emailers, Jim. Apparently it's aphid, not aphid.
I thought you said aphid.
Well, I don't know what I said.
And what is it again? It's like
it's a little yellow, tiny little invasive
thing?
little insect that you can see on your plants, and ladybugs come in and eat them, or you can get that neem oil, I think it's called. But I'm not sure I'm ready to.
You know, in all seriousness, I am sort of surprised. I mean, you really are big time into a flower growing kind of thing. This is just like one step over, isn't it? Kind of, and you also get a reward. I mean, the one thing that Tamar said that I think we both agree with is there's got to be, beyond how great fresh food tastes, the satisfaction of producing your own stuff and then eating it. I mean, that's pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of gardeners. We have an email from someone who says growing herbs, apparently, according to this emailer, are pretty easy to do, so maybe that's something I could try doing. But this person says that they tend to their potted geraniums and morning glories and loves all these flowers and it's bliss, but she doesn't eat them, and that's the thing. You can watch them grow, which gives you a great deal of satisfaction. Although now, you know, with drought coming in, you're worried about using too much water to water the plants to keep them going. But lots of people who emailed said they love gardening. This is Sue from Brockton, but if I had to kill my own meat, I would become a vegetarian.
But the hypocrisy of her and me is we're eating meat and it's slaughtered. You know, one of my favorite videos, we'll get to you, Lenny, and Seekonk in a second.
To this.
Wait, one of the greatest, when you asked Tamar the question I meant to ask when you talked about killing the chickens, do you remember the fabulous video when Sarah Palin is running for vice president?
Yeah.
She's talking to the camera and is unaware that right behind her, they are putting head first turkeys. Wasn't it Thanksgiving?
Into like a turkey shredder.
Literally.
Oh, God.
Head first, right behind her.
It was awful.
Everything is gone everywhere.
The feathers are going, the feet are going 95
I'm sorry,
miles
what were you
an hour.
going to say there?
Paul from Worcester just had the great story thing about his chicken sandwich with his own herbs. He orders praying mantis every year to have 0 garden pests. Plus, they are very cool and evil. 3 inches long bugs.
Do you know if you kill a praying mantis, you can go to jail or something? It's horrible.
Well, aren't they the ones that after they mate, they bite off the head of the person they just mated with, or the praying mantis they just mated with? I think that's what they do, Jim.
I think it is. That's an appealing notion, too. Lenny and Seekonk, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're at the Boston Public Library. Welcome.
Hi, fourth-time caller. You guys are pure joy to me.
By the way, your first and third call was great. Your second call was so-so. So let's see how you do this time, Lenny.
I know.
Thank you.
Okay, so my inspiration for my personal
you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, real
sorry,
quick. I'm sorry. We're almost out of time.
Okay,
real quick.
All right, I got to forage in Prague with my Czech friend in these Harry Potter woods. Picked these mushrooms, they just know what they're doing over there. She brought them home, fried them up, put an egg in them, and it was just an unbelievable experience.
Excellent fourth call, Lenny. We'll wait for the fifth. Thank you very much for doing that. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are done. On Monday, we're going to be joined by Christopher Wilkins from the Boston Landmarks Orchestra. We'll also have our food writer, Corby Cummer, the Reverends Aria Monroe and Emmett Price, plus Michael Curry from the NAACP. He also, of course, runs the Health Center network all around the state. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Mackenzie Farkas, Rebecca Tauber, our engineer, John the Claw Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna, our on-site engineers, the BPL, Sai Patel, Colin Cockrell, Rob Fagnet, and Chris Hanks. Thank you very much.
We want to add one name today. Emily Shario, sitting in the back of the room in orange, has been a huge help to everything we've done here. It's her last day. She's going to the Boston Globe. Lots of luck, Emily.
Oh, Emily, congratulations. That's fantastic. Okay, so you're not on TV tonight, but
actually, what I'm doing this afternoon, which I'm going hunting, actually. Going hunting in the wilds of Inman Square late afternoon, and I'm hoping to bag or harvest something.
Well, Callie Crossy's on tonight, 7:30, Basic Black. Is Adam Riley on at 7 o'clock doing politics?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think some of the shows are on
Watch
summer
it all
hiatus.
night. There'll be good things there.
Okay. But anyway, thank you very much, Jim, for your contributions. You did a very nice job.
Thank you for I really appreciate it. It's
I'm
very
Marjorie
kind.
Egan.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Library. Really appreciate it. Hope you can tune in on Monday. And as Jim said, have a great weekend.